Deep beneath the Mediterranean Sea, Greek sponge divers once pulled a strange, corroded lump of bronze from the ocean floor. It was 1900, and to them it looked like nothing more than ancient scrap metal. For decades, it sat forgotten in a dusty museum storage room in Athens, until 1951, when researchers cracked it open and saw the impossible. Inside were dozens of precisely crafted bronze gears, an ancient computer capable of predicting eclipses and tracking planetary movements with accuracy rivaling the 1800s. It was over 2,000 years old when it shouldn't exist, but this was just the beginning. Across the globe, archaeologists and museum curators have uncovered artifacts that defy the timelines we've been taught. Ancient temples built by people supposedly living in caves. Stonework so precise it baffles modern engineers. Maps charting lands that weren't discovered for centuries. Genetic mysteries buried in our own DNA. These are not internet conspiracies or sci-fi fantasies. They are real objects, documented in peer-reviewed journals, displayed in world-class museums, studied by respected scientists. And still, no one can fully explain them. And if the Antikythera mechanism wasn't supposed to exist, what else is out there, hiding in plain sight? Over the next few hours, we'll travel from ocean depths to mountaintop ruins, from forgotten tombs to the vaults of the world's great museums, unearthing 20 discoveries that could rewrite everything we know about our past. Settle in and prepare to question what you thought you knew about the rise of human civilization. Some secrets were meant to stay hidden. Tonight we're digging them up anyway. Our journey begins right where it was found, beneath the waves of the Mediterranean. In the spring of 1900, Captain Demetrius Kondos and his crew were seeking shelter from a storm near the small Greek island of Antikythera when they decided to dive for sponges. What diver, Elias Stadiatis, found on the seafloor sent him racing back to the surface in terror. "Bodies!" he gasped. "Dead, naked bodies everywhere." They weren't corpses at all, but bronze statues from an ancient shipwreck, their green patina making them appear ghostly in the dim light. The wreck, dating to around 60 BCE, had carried a cargo of treasures, marble statues, amphorae, luxury goods. And that unassuming lump of corroded bronze and wood, no bigger than a shoebox. For half a century, it sat ignored in storage at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Then, British science historian Derek J. de Sola Price examined it closely and realised he was looking at the remains of a machine unlike anything from the ancient world. What Price uncovered would force historians to rethink the timeline of human invention. As he cleaned away the marine corrosion, he began to see something impossible. Gear wheels. Not just one or two, but dozens of them, precisely crafted and intricately connected. What Price was examining was a mechanical computer from 100 BCE, a device more sophisticated than anything that would appear again until the Renaissance. The Antikythera mechanism contained at least 37 bronze gears, some as small as coins, others the size of dinner plates, all cut with extraordinary precision. The gears were arranged in a complex system that could model the movements of celestial bodies with stunning accuracy. Turn a handle on the side, and bronze pointers would show the positions of the sun, moon, and planets for any given date. The device could predict solar and lunar eclipses decades in advance and track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. But this wasn't just an impressive display of ancient engineering. Recent research using advanced imaging techniques has revealed that the mechanism was even more sophisticated than originally thought. It could track the synodic periods of all 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The complexity was mind-boggling. The mechanism included what's known as the Metonic gear, a 235-tooth gear that perfectly modelled the 19-year cycle discovered by the Greek mathematician Meton. The precision required to cut a gear with 235 teeth using ancient tools is almost unimaginable. Modern attempts to recreate such gears using period-appropriate techniques have largely failed. The device also compensated for the elliptical orbit of the moon using a pin and slot mechanism that caused the moon pointer to speed up and slow down in accordance with Kepler's laws that wouldn't be officially discovered until the 17th century. Perhaps most remarkably, the mechanism included differential gears, a technology that wasn't supposed to have been invented until the late 16th century. These gears allowed the device to perform complex calculations by comparing the relative motions of different celestial bodies. Ancient texts mention similar machines built by Archimedes and other Greek engineers. Cicero wrote about a device created by Archimedes that showed the motions of celestial bodies, describing it as a kind of planetarium. The Roman author Ovid mentioned a bronze sphere that moved like the heavens themselves. This suggests the Antikythera mechanism wasn't a one-off creation, but part of a sophisticated technological tradition. There may have been schools of ancient engineers creating these mechanical computers, passing down their knowledge through generations of master craftsmen. But if such technology existed, why did it disappear? Some researchers believe the knowledge was so specialised, held by only a few master craftsmen, that it was lost when the Roman Empire fell and the Dark Ages began. The social upheaval of late antiquity may have destroyed entire traditions of learning. The device also reveals something profound about ancient Greek attitudes toward the cosmos. To the Greeks, the universe was a rational, mathematical place governed by discoverable laws. The Antikythera mechanism embodies this worldview. It's a bronze and wood testament to the Greek belief that the heavens could be understood through observation, measurement, and mechanical modelling. Recent discoveries have made the mechanism even more mysterious. Researchers have found inscriptions on the device that appear to be a kind of instruction manual, describing how to operate it and interpret its results. These inscriptions mention astronomical phenomena and mythological references that we don't fully understand. The mechanism stands as stark proof that our ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities far beyond what we've given them credit for. If the ancient Greeks could build analog computers like this, what other technologies did they possess that history has forgotten? What innovations were lost in the collapse of the ancient world, only to be slowly rediscovered centuries later? The Antikythera mechanism reminds us that technological progress isn't always linear. Sometimes knowledge advances rapidly, then stagnates or disappears entirely. Sometimes our ancestors achieved things that we struggle to replicate even today. Artifact 2, the Baghdad Battery, ancient electricity. From the depths of the Mediterranean to the deserts of Mesopotamia, our next artifact suggests that the ancients may have harnessed a force we didn't think they understood. In 1936, workers building a railway near Baghdad uncovered what appeared to be an ordinary, ancient cemetery. Among the artifacts recovered were simple clay jars that seemed unremarkable, the kind of everyday objects that fill museum storage rooms around the world. But when German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig examined these artifacts in 1938, he noticed something extraordinary. The jars contained copper cylinders, and inside each cylinder was an iron rod held in place by an asphalt stopper. The iron rods showed signs of corrosion that suggested they had been in contact with an acidic solution. Koenig proposed a revolutionary idea. These weren't storage containers at all, but ancient batteries. If filled with an acidic solution like vinegar or wine, the copper and iron would create a galvanic cell capable of producing electrical currents. The Baghdad Battery might represent evidence that ancient peoples had discovered electricity nearly 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta. The implications were staggering. If the Parthians had electricity, what were they using it for? How widespread was this knowledge? And why did it disappear from the historical record? To test Koenig's theory, researchers built working replicas of the Baghdad Battery. When filled with grape juice, vinegar, or other acidic solutions, these replicas could indeed produce electrical current, enough to power a small light bulb or create electrochemical reactions. The most likely use for such devices would have been electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of precious metals. This would explain how ancient craftsmen achieved such even, durable gold and silver coatings on jewellery and decorative objects. The precision and uniformity of ancient metalwork had long puzzled archaeologists. Experimental archaeology has shown that Baghdad Battery replicas can successfully electroplate copper with gold or silver, creating the kind of high-quality finishes found on ancient artifacts. The process requires careful control of current and timing, suggesting the ancient users understood the principles involved. Similar objects have been found at other Parthian sites across Iraq and Iran, suggesting these weren't isolated curiosities, but part of a wider technological tradition. The standardization of their construction, the consistent use of copper cylinders, iron rods, and asphalt stoppers suggests they were made for a specific purpose. But the mystery goes deeper. Ancient texts from various cultures describe phenomena that sound remarkably like electrical effects. The ancient Egyptians wrote about divine fire that emanated from certain sacred objects. Hindu texts describe weapons that could paralyze enemies with invisible force. Could these be garbled descriptions of electrical devices? The Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, contains stone reliefs that some researchers believe depict ancient electrical devices. The carvings show bulb-like objects connected to what appear to be cables, with figures operating what could be interpreted as electrical equipment. While mainstream archaeology interprets these as religious symbols, the resemblance to electrical components is striking. However, the Baghdad battery remains controversial. Critics argue that the objects could have been used for storing scrolls or other materials, and that the acidic corrosion could have occurred naturally over time. They point out that no copper wires or other electrical components have been found at Parthian sites. The debate highlights a broader question about ancient technology. How much knowledge was lost during the various collapses of ancient civilizations? We know that the ancient world possessed sophisticated engineering, mathematics, and metallurgy. Is it possible they also understood electrical phenomena? Consider the mystery of Damascus steel, the legendary metal that could cut through European armour like butter. The secret of its production was lost centuries ago, and despite numerous attempts, modern metallurgists have only recently begun to understand how it was made. The steel contained carbon nanotubes, structures that weren't officially discovered until the 20th century. Or examine the Lycurgus cup, a 4th century Roman glass vessel that changes colour depending on the light source. When lit from behind, it glows ruby red. When lit from the front, it appears jade green. Modern analysis has revealed that the glass contains nanoparticles of gold and silver, nanotechnology that we've only recently learned to reproduce deliberately. Ancient Roman concrete has proven more durable than modern concrete, lasting for centuries underwater, while contemporary concrete crumbles within decades. The Romans achieved this by using volcanic ash that creates chemical reactions we're only now beginning to understand. The pattern is clear. Throughout the ancient world, civilizations achieved things that challenge our understanding of what was possible with the technologies they're supposed to have possessed. Whether it's the Baghdad battery's potential electrical applications, the nanoscale engineering of Damascus steel, or the precision architecture of ancient monuments, the evidence suggests our ancestors were far more technically sophisticated than we've given them credit for. This raises troubling questions. If these technologies existed, why did they disappear? How much knowledge was lost during the Dark Ages? And what other technologies might our ancestors have possessed that we haven't yet rediscovered? The Baghdad battery, whether it was actually used to generate electricity or not, represents something profound. The possibility that human technological development hasn't always been the steady, linear progression we imagine. Maybe knowledge was gained and lost multiple times throughout history. Maybe some of our modern discoveries are actually rediscoveries of ancient wisdom. As we continue to study ancient artifacts with increasingly sophisticated techniques, we may discover that our ancestors were capable of achievements we never imagined possible. The Baghdad battery reminds us to keep an open mind about the past and to never underestimate human ingenuity. Artifact 3. The Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. Precision in granite. While ancient Mesopotamians may have been experimenting with electricity halfway around the world, another civilization was achieving mathematical perfection in stone. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica, scattered across archaeological sites from the Pacific coast to inland valleys, lie some of the most perfect geometric objects ever created by human hands. Over 300 granite spheres, ranging from the size of tennis balls to massive 15-ton boulders, carved with a precision that defies explanation. The discovery of these spheres reads like something from an adventure novel. In the 1930s, the United Fruit Company was clearing jungle for banana plantations when workers began finding perfectly round stone balls hidden beneath the tropical vegetation. At first, they seemed like natural curiosities, perhaps volcanic formations or stones shaped by river erosion. But as more spheres were uncovered, it became clear that these were artificial creations of extraordinary sophistication. When measured with modern instruments, many proved to be perfect spheres, accurate to within a few millimeters. The largest examples, standing 6 feet in diameter and weighing up to 15 tons, maintain their spherical geometry, with tolerances that would challenge contemporary stone carvers using advanced tools. These aren't roughly spherical rocks shaped by natural erosion. These are mathematical perfection, carved in stone by people who supposedly had no knowledge of geometry, no precision measuring instruments, and no advanced tools. The spheres were created by the Dickies culture between 600 and 1000 CE, but the techniques they used remain a complete mystery. The stone, gabbro, a granite-like rock nearly as hard as quartz, would have been incredibly difficult to shape with primitive tools. Gabbro has a hardness rating of 6-7 on the Mohs scale, making it harder than steel. How do you carve a perfect sphere from solid granite without modern measuring instruments? The process would require constant checking and rechecking of dimensions, progressive removal of material from all angles, and mathematical calculations to ensure symmetry. Some researchers estimate it would take years of continuous work to complete just one large sphere. The mathematical challenge is staggering. To create a perfect sphere, you need to remove material uniformly from all points on the surface, maintaining equal distances from the centre. This requires not just artistic skill, but sophisticated understanding of three-dimensional geometry. Various theories have been proposed for how the spheres were made. Some suggest they were shaped by controlled fracturing, hitting the stone repeatedly in precisely calculated patterns to gradually round it. Others propose they were shaped by rolling them over sand or other abrasive materials for extended periods. But experimental attempts to recreate the spheres using proposed ancient techniques have largely failed to achieve anything approaching the precision of the originals. Modern stone carvers using traditional tools struggle to create spheres with even a fraction of the accuracy found in Costa Rica. The mystery goes deeper than just the craftsmanship. Many of the spheres have been found in precise alignments, arranged in straight lines or geometric patterns that suggest sophisticated surveying knowledge. Some alignments point toward the magnetic north, others toward important astronomical directions. At the Finca 6 site, archaeologists documented spheres arranged in perfectly straight lines extending for over 45 meters. The precision of these alignments suggests the use of sophisticated surveying techniques and possibly even astronomical observations to establish direction. Some researchers believe the alignments are astronomical, pointing toward the rising or setting positions of important stars or constellations. Others suggest they marked territorial boundaries or served as waypoints along ancient trade routes. The truth is, we simply don't know. Unfortunately, many spheres were damaged or moved before archaeologists could properly document their original positions. Local legends claiming the spheres contained gold led treasure hunters to dynamite dozens of them in the early 20th century, destroying irreplaceable archaeological evidence. The banana plantation workers who first discovered the spheres often moved them to use as lawn ornaments or property markers, further disrupting their original arrangements. It's estimated that less than half of the known spheres remain in their original positions. The surviving arrangements suggest the spheres weren't just artistic achievements but components of a larger system, possibly astronomical markers, territorial boundaries, or elements of a complex ceremonial landscape that we can barely comprehend. What makes the Costa Rican spheres even more mysterious is that similar stone spheres have been found scattered across the globe. In Bosnia, the Zavidovici spheres show similar precision and craftsmanship. Scotland's stone balls date back to the Neolithic period. New Zealand has spherical boulders that some claim are artificial. Easter Island's Moai statues are accompanied by numerous stone spheres. Were these independent developments, or evidence of a worldwide tradition of sphere making that we don't understand? The global distribution suggests either remarkable convergent evolution of the same idea or some form of cultural contact that mainstream archaeology doesn't recognise. The question of why ancient peoples invested such enormous effort in creating perfect spheres remains unanswered. The mathematical precision suggests these weren't casual art projects, but objects of profound importance to their creators. Perhaps they held religious significance, represented cosmic bodies, or served as markers in some complex system of meaning that we've lost. Recent research has revealed that some of the spheres were created from local river cobbles that were already roughly spherical, while others were carved from quarried stone. This suggests different manufacturing traditions or purposes for different types of spheres. The Diki people left no written records, so we can only guess at the meaning behind their stone spheres. They created a civilization capable of mathematical precision that rivals modern engineering, yet their culture remains largely mysterious to us. The spheres of Costa Rica stand as monuments to human perfectionism and mathematical understanding, proving that the drive to create flawless geometric forms is as old as civilization itself. They remind us that our ancestors combined artistic vision with mathematical precision in ways that continue to inspire wonder and challenge our assumptions about ancient capabilities. Each sphere represents hundreds or thousands of hours of careful work by master craftsmen who understood geometry, possessed sophisticated tools, and were driven by purposes we can barely imagine. They are testament to human dedication to perfection and proof that mathematical thinking emerged much earlier in human history than we often assume. Artifact 4. The Phaistos Disc, Script of the Unknown. From perfect spheres carved in granite, we turn to perfect mysteries inscribed in clay, a disc that speaks in tongues no living person can understand. In 1908, Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier was excavating the Minoan palace complex at Phaistos on the island of Crete when he made one of archaeology's most enigmatic discoveries. Buried in a basement room of the palace was a fired clay disc, about 6 inches in diameter, covered with symbols unlike anything ever seen before. The Phaistos disc contains 241 individual symbols arranged in a spiral pattern, reading from the outside edge toward the centre. The symbols were impressed into the clay using stamps or seals, making this potentially the world's earliest example of movable type printing, predating Gutenberg by over 3,000 years. The printing technique alone would be revolutionary if we understood it properly. Each of the 45 unique symbols appears to have been created using individual stamps, suggesting a sophisticated system of reproducible writing. This implies not just the existence of a complete set of typepieces, but also the conceptual leap of understanding that individual symbols could be combined to create different texts. But it's not the printing technique that makes the disc famous, it's the complete mystery of what it says. The symbols show a fascinating array of images: human figures in various poses, animals including birds and fish, plants and flowers, tools and weapons, architectural elements and geometric designs. Yet despite over a century of analysis by the world's best cryptographers and linguists, no one has successfully deciphered the disc's meaning. The symbols don't match any known ancient writing system. They're not Egyptian hieroglyphs, not linear A or linear B from other Minoan sites, not any form of cuneiform or early alphabet. The Phaistos disc appears to represent a completely unique writing system that was used nowhere else in the ancient world. This uniqueness is part of what makes decipherment so difficult. Most ancient scripts are decoded by comparing them to known languages or by analysing large amounts of text to identify patterns. The Rosetta Stone could be deciphered because it contained the same text in multiple languages. Linear B was cracked by analysing hundreds of tablets to identify recurring patterns and word structures. But the Phaistos disc is a singleton, a single example of its writing system with no other text to compare it to. It's like trying to learn an entire language from a single paragraph written in an unknown script. Hundreds of proposed translations have been offered over the decades. Some scholars believe it's a religious hymn dedicated to a Minoan goddess. Others think it's a historical narrative recording important events or royal genealogies. Still others suggest it might be an astronomical text recording celestial observations, or even an ancient board game with the symbols representing moves or positions. The disc has been interpreted as everything from a love poem to a military dispatch to an alien message. In the 1970s, one researcher claimed it was an ancient Greek epic poem. In the 1980s, another suggested it was a prayer in an unknown Indo-European language. More recently, proposals have included everything from ancient Egyptian to Sanskrit to a completely unknown language family. The The challenge is that without more examples of the script, there's no way to verify any proposed translation. A clever interpreter could probably make the symbols spell out almost anything they wanted, and there would be no way to prove them wrong. Computer analysis has added new tools to the decipherment effort. Statistical analysis of symbol frequency and distribution has revealed patterns that suggest the disk does represent genuine language rather than random decorative designs. The symbols appear to follow rules of syntax and grammar, with certain symbols appearing more frequently at the beginnings or ends of words. Some symbols appear to be determinatives, signs that modify or clarify the meaning of other symbols, similar to Egyptian hieroglyphs. Others might be phonetic, representing sounds rather than meanings. The spiral arrangement creates natural word divisions, with each segment between lines potentially representing individual words or phrases. The mystery deepens when we consider the advanced printing technique used to create it. If the Minoans were mass-producing written documents using movable type, where are all the other examples? Did they have libraries of text that were lost when Minoan civilization collapsed? Were there schools of scribes trained in this printing technology? Recent excavations at other Minoan sites have turned up a few other examples of stamped symbols, but nothing approaching the complexity of the Phaistos disk. Some pottery shards show individual symbols that match ones on the disk, suggesting the writing system may have been more widespread than previously thought. Some researchers have questioned whether the disk is even authentic. A few scholars suggest it might be a clever modern forgery, pointing to the convenient discovery circumstances and the lack of similar finds. However, detailed analysis of the clay composition, firing techniques, and tool marks confirms it's genuinely ancient. The clay matches other ceramics from the Phaistos Palace, and the firing shows characteristics consistent with Bronze Age pottery techniques. The symbols show wear patterns and clay displacement that would be extremely difficult to fake convincingly. One intriguing possibility is that the disk represents a specialized writing system used for specific purposes, perhaps religious ceremonies, astronomical calculations, or trade records. Many ancient civilizations used different scripts for different purposes, and the Phaistos disk might be an example of such specialization. The disk might also represent a transitional form of writing, perhaps an early experiment with phonetic symbols that was abandoned in favor of other systems. The Minoan civilization was in contact with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and other literate societies, and they may have been experimenting with different approaches to writing. Recent discoveries of other mysterious scripts, including the still undeciphered Linear A and various symbols found at sites across the Mediterranean, suggest that the ancient world was much more literate than we often assume. Many civilizations may have developed writing systems that were lost when their cultures collapsed. The Phaistos disk remains one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles, a tantalizing glimpse of an ancient writing system that appeared once and then vanished forever, taking its secrets with it into the silence of the past. It stands as a reminder that human communication and record-keeping may have been far more sophisticated in the ancient world than we realise. Whether it records prayers or poetry, history, or astronomy, the disk represents a moment when ancient minds sought to preserve their thoughts in permanent form. Until we crack its code, it remains a voice from the past that we can see but cannot hear, a message waiting to be understood. Artifact 5, the Roman dodecahedrons, geometry's greatest mystery. If the Phaistos disk represents writing we cannot read, our next artifacts represent objects whose very purpose has been lost to time. Scattered across museums throughout Europe, lie some of the most puzzling artifacts of the Roman Empire. They're called Roman dodecahedrons, hollow bronze objects with 12 pentagonal faces, each face pierced by a circular hole of different diameter. Over 100 of these mysterious objects have been found across Roman territories, yet not a single ancient text mentions them. No contemporary image depicts them, and their purpose remains completely unknown. The dodecahedrons are masterpieces of ancient craftsmanship. Each one is perfectly geometric, with precisely formed pentagonal faces and carefully calculated holes. The holes vary in size from face to face, following patterns that suggest mathematical principles we don't fully understand. Some are decorated with small knobs at the vertices, others are plain, but all show the same sophisticated understanding of complex geometry. What makes these objects particularly mysterious is their distribution. They've been found primarily in the northern provinces of the Roman Empire, Britain, Gaul, Germany and the Balkans, regions that were on the frontier of Roman civilization. Very few have been discovered in the Mediterranean heartland of the empire, suggesting they served some specific purpose related to northern European conditions or cultures. The craftsmanship required to create these objects was extraordinary. Bronze working in the Roman period was a skilled trade, but creating a perfect dodecahedron required mathematical knowledge and technical precision beyond typical metalworking. Each face had to be precisely calculated and formed, the holes carefully sized and positioned, and the entire structure assembled with perfect symmetry. The geometric sophistication suggests these weren't casual decorative items, but tools designed for specific purposes. A dodecahedron is one of the 5 Platonic solids, perfectly symmetrical, 3-dimensional shapes that have fascinated mathematicians since ancient times. The Romans clearly understood complex geometry, but why they would mass-produce these particular shapes remains a mystery. Dozens of theories have been proposed for the dodecahedron's purpose. Some researchers suggest they were surveying instruments, used by Roman engineers to measure distances or angles. The holes of different sizes could have been used as sighting devices, similar to a theodolite or other surveying tool. Others propose that they were astronomical instruments, perhaps used to determine the optimal dates for planting crops or to track celestial movements. The 12 faces could represent months of the year, while the holes might have been used to observe specific stars or constellations. Military theories suggest they were range-finding devices for siege weapons or tools for calculating projectile trajectories. The varying hole sizes could have been calibrated to specific distances or weapon types, allowing Roman artillery crews to improve their accuracy. Religious interpretations propose they were ceremonial, objects used in mystery cults or pagan rituals. The perfect geometric form might have held symbolic meaning, representing divine order or cosmic harmony. Some dodecahedrons show wear patterns, suggesting that they were handled frequently, possibly during religious ceremonies. More practical theories suggest they were tools for specific crafts, perhaps used by metalworkers to draw circles of different sizes, by builders to check angles and proportions, or by textile workers as yarn winders or knitting aids. The knobs on some examples could have served as anchor points for threads or measuring devices. One intriguing possibility is that they were teaching tools, used to demonstrate geometric principles or mathematical concepts. Roman education included geometry and mathematics, and 3-dimensional models would have been valuable for illustrating complex concepts. The different hole sizes might have been designed to demonstrate specific mathematical ratios or proportions. Recent experiments have tested various theories. Researchers have used replica dodecahedrons as surveying instruments with mixed results. They can function as measuring tools, but not with the precision you'd expect from Roman engineering standards. Astronomical tests have shown they can be used to track celestial movements, but again, not with exceptional accuracy. The most promising recent theory suggests they were agricultural tools, specifically designed for determining optimal planting dates in northern European climates. The different hole sizes might have been calibrated to track the sun's position throughout the year, helping farmers determine when to plant specific crops. This agricultural theory gains support from the dodecahedron's geographic distribution. They're found primarily in regions where Roman agricultural techniques were being adapted to northern European conditions, areas where precise timing of planting and harvesting would have been crucial for survival. Some researchers have noted that the holes in many dodecahedrons correspond to specific angular measurements related to the sun's seasonal movements. By observing sunlight passing through different holes, farmers might have been able to determine precise dates for agricultural activities. But even this theory doesn't fully explain the dodecahedron's mystery. If they were agricultural tools, why are they made from expensive bronze rather than cheaper materials? Why do they show such sophisticated craftsmanship for what would essentially be farming equipment? And why don't any ancient sources mention such an important agricultural innovation? The silence of ancient sources is perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the dodecahedron mystery. The Romans were prolific writers who documented everything from military tactics to cooking recipes. They wrote extensively about surveying, astronomy, agriculture, and crafts. yet they never mentioned these sophisticated geometric objects. This suggests either that the dodecahedrons were so common that they didn't merit special mention, or that they were associated with activities that weren't typically documented in writing. Perhaps they were trade secrets of specific crafts guilds, or tools used by illiterate workers who left no written records. The mystery has spawned a cottage industry of replica making and experimentation. Modern craftsmen have created functional dodecahedrons and tested them for various purposes, but none of the proposed uses fully explains all the characteristics of the original artifacts. Recent discoveries have added new dimensions to the mystery. In 2023, archaeologists found a dodecahedron in a Roman grave alongside surveying instruments, suggesting it may indeed have been a professional tool. Other examples have been found in workshops and temples, supporting various use theories. The Roman dodecahedrons remain one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. Objects that are clearly sophisticated and purposeful, yet whose function has been completely lost to time. They remind us that even civilizations as well documented as Rome had technologies and practices that weren't preserved in written records. These bronze enigmas challenge our assumptions about ancient knowledge and technology. They prove that Roman craftsmen understood complex geometry and could execute sophisticated designs with remarkable precision. Yet they also humble us with the reminder that not all ancient knowledge has survived to the present day. Artifact 6. The Gilgamesh Tablet. Echoes of the Great Flood. From mysterious Roman tools to ancient literary masterpieces, our next discovery would shake the foundations of biblical scholarship. In the scorching desert of Iraq, among the ruins of ancient Nineveh, archaeologist Austin Henry Layard made a discovery in 1853 that would fundamentally change our understanding of ancient literature and biblical history. Hidden in the royal library of Assyrian king Ashurbanipal were thousands of cuneiform tablets, including one that contained the world's oldest known literary masterpiece, and a story that seemed impossible. The tablet contained part of the Epic of Gilgamesh, a Mesopotamian poem dating back over 4,000 years. But it wasn't just the age of the literature that shocked scholars, it was the content. The epic included a detailed account of a great flood that destroyed humanity, complete with a hero who built an ark to save his family and representatives of all animal species. The similarities to the biblical flood narrative were unmistakable and troubling for 19th century scholars. Here was a flood story that predated the Bible by over 1,000 years, suggesting that either the biblical account was derived from earlier Mesopotamian sources, or that both stories preserved memories of an actual historical event. The Gilgamesh flood narrative follows a familiar pattern. The gods decide to destroy humanity with a great flood, but one righteous man is warned in advance. Utnapishtim, the Mesopotamian Noah, builds a massive boat and loads it with his family, craftsmen, and the seed of all living creatures. The flood lasts for 6 days and 7 nights, destroying all life on Earth except for those in the ark. When the waters begin to recede, Utnapishtim sends out birds to search for dry land. First a dove, then a swallow, and finally a raven. The raven doesn't return, indicating that dry land has been found. The ark comes to rest on a mountain, and Utnapishtim offers sacrifices to the gods who smell the sweet savour and regret their decision to destroy humanity. The parallels to the biblical account are so precise that they can't be coincidental. Both stories feature a righteous man warned by divinity, a great boat built to specific dimensions, animals saved in pairs or groups, birds sent out to find land, the ark resting on a mountain, and sacrifices offered after the flood. But the Gilgamesh tablet wasn't the only ancient flood narrative discovered. As archaeologists excavated sites across Mesopotamia, they found flood stories in multiple cultures and time periods. The Sumerian king list mentions kings who reigned before the flood and those who ruled after, treating the flood as a historical dividing line. The Atrahasis epic, another Mesopotamian poem, provides even more detail about the flood narrative, explaining that the gods sent the flood because humanity had become too numerous and noisy, disturbing their sleep. The flood becomes a divine attempt at population control, rather than punishment for moral failings. Archaeological evidence began to support the possibility of historical floods in Mesopotamia. Sir Leonard Woolley's excavations at in the 1920s revealed thick layers of clean clay deposited by water, separating earlier archaeological levels from later ones. Similar flood deposits were found at other Mesopotamian sites, suggesting region-wide flooding events. The geological evidence points to massive flooding in the Mesopotamian Valley around 2900 BCE, caused by unusual weather patterns, river changes, or possibly the breaching of natural dams. Such floods would have been catastrophic for early urban civilizations dependent on agriculture and river transport. But the flood narratives weren't limited to Mesopotamia. Similar stories appeared in cultures around the world, from the Greek myth of Deucalion to the Hindu narrative of Manu to flood stories found among Native American tribes. The global distribution of flood myths suggests either shared cultural memory of actual events or common psychological responses to natural disasters. Recent geological research has revealed evidence for massive flooding events throughout human history. The Black Sea deluge hypothesis suggests that the Mediterranean Sea broke through a natural dam around 5600 BCE, flooding the Black Sea basin and forcing massive population migrations. Such an event could have inspired flood narratives that spread throughout the ancient world. Other researchers point to evidence of massive glacial lake outburst floods at the end of the last ice age. As glacial dams burst, they released volumes of water that dwarfed any modern floods, carving new landscapes and destroying entire ecosystems within days or weeks. The most compelling evidence comes from the study of submarine archaeology. As sea levels rose after the ice age, vast coastal areas where early humans lived were submerged. These drowned landscapes may have contained some of humanity's earliest cities and civilizations, now lost beneath hundreds of feet of water. The discovery of underwater settlements off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean suggests that major population centres existed on now submerged continental shelves. The catastrophic flooding of these areas as sea levels rose could have inspired the global flood narratives found in so many cultures. But the Gilgamesh tablet reveals more than just flood stories. The epic contains sophisticated themes about friendship, mortality, the abuse of power, and the search for meaning. Concepts that resonate just as powerfully today as they did 4,000 years ago. It demonstrates that ancient peoples grappled with the same fundamental questions about existence that occupy modern philosophers. The character of Gilgamesh himself is complex and flawed, making him remarkably human, despite his semi-divine status. He begins as a tyrant who oppresses his people, transforms through friendship and loss into a seeker of wisdom, and ultimately accepts his mortality and human limitations. This character development rivals anything in modern literature. The tablet also preserves ancient Mesopotamian attitudes toward nature, divinity, and civilization. The epic portrays the tension between urban civilization and the natural world, embodied in the character of Enkidu, who represents wild nature tamed by civilization. These themes reflect real concerns in early urban societies about the costs and benefits of leaving hunter-gatherer lifestyles behind. Recent translations have revealed additional layers of meaning in the epic. The original Sumerian versions differ significantly from later Akkadian and Assyrian adaptations, showing how the story evolved over centuries of retelling. Each culture that inherited the epic modified it to reflect their own values and concerns. The flood narrative within Gilgamesh may preserve humanity's oldest historical memory, a traumatic event so significant that it became embedded in cultural memory and passed down through oral tradition for thousands of years before being written down. If so, it represents our most ancient connection to a shared human experience of catastrophe and survival. Modern climate science suggests that the end of the last ice age was marked by rapid and dramatic environmental changes that would have seemed apocalyptic to early human populations. Rising sea levels, shifting weather patterns, and the extinction of megafauna would have fundamentally altered the world that early humans knew. The Gilgamesh tablet stands as testament to humanity's ancient struggle to understand catastrophic change and to find meaning in the face of forces beyond human control. It reminds us that our ancestors faced existential challenges just as daunting as those we face today, and that they sought answers through storytelling, literature, and the preservation of cultural memory. Artifact 7, the Damascus Steel Swords, Lost Metallurgy. From legendary floods preserved in ancient literature to legendary steel that modern science struggles to recreate. In the museums of Istanbul, Damascus, and private collections around the world lie some of the most legendary weapons ever forged. These are the Damascus steel blades of medieval Islamic smiths. Swords so sharp they could slice through silk scarves floating in the air, so hard they could cut through European armour, yet so flexible they could be bent into circles without breaking. The reputation of Damascus steel was legendary throughout the medieval world. Crusaders returning from the Holy Land told tales of Saracen blades that could perform impossible feats. These swords could supposedly cut through a knight's sword and armour in a single stroke, yet were so perfectly balanced that they felt weightless in the hand. European smiths tried desperately to recreate Damascus steel, but their attempts consistently failed. They could make swords that were hard, or swords that were flexible, but never both simultaneously. The secret seemed to lie not just in the forging techniques, but in the steel itself, a unique material with properties that European metallurgy couldn't match. The steel came from ingots imported from India, known as Wootz steel. These ingots contained a specific combination of iron and carbon that, when properly forged, created the legendary Damascus blades. But even with access to the same raw materials, European smiths couldn't duplicate the forging process. What made Damascus steel truly distinctive was its surface pattern, flowing, water-like designs that seemed to move across the blade's surface. These patterns weren't decorative etchings, but natural formations created by the steel's internal structure. No two Damascus blades had identical patterns, making each sword unique. The forging process was a closely guarded secret passed down through generations of Islamic smiths. Master sword makers in Damascus, Toledo, and other centres developed techniques that took decades to master. The knowledge was so specialised that when the traditional trade routes were disrupted and the supply of Wootz steel was cut off, the entire tradition disappeared, almost overnight. By the 18th century, the art of making true Damascus steel was lost. Despite numerous attempts by metallurgists and historians, no one could recreate the original techniques. The swords themselves survived as museum pieces, but the knowledge of how to make them had vanished as completely as if it had never existed. Modern scientific analysis has revealed why Damascus steel was so extraordinary. The secret lay in the steel's microstructure, a complex arrangement of carbon nanotubes and carbide formations that weren't officially discovered by science until the 20th century. Damascus smiths had somehow learned to create and manipulate nanotechnology 500 years before modern science knew such structures existed. The carbon nanotubes gave Damascus steel its incredible strength and flexibility. These microscopic structures, invisible to the naked eye, created a composite material that combined the best properties of hard and soft steel in a single blade. The result was a sword that could hold an impossibly sharp edge while remaining virtually unbreakable. Recent research has also revealed that Damascus steel contained trace elements of vanadium and other metals that enhanced its properties. These elements came from specific ore deposits in India and may have been crucial to the steel's unique characteristics. When these original sources were depleted or became inaccessible, true Damascus steel could no longer be made. The loss of Damascus steel represents one of history's most significant technological regressions. A metallurgical achievement that took centuries to develop was lost in just a few decades, demonstrating how fragile technological knowledge can be when it depends on specific materials and closely guarded techniques. Attempts to recreate Damascus steel using modern technology have achieved limited success. While scientists can now produce steel with similar microstructures, they've been unable to perfectly replicate the forging process that created the original blades. Something in the ancient technique, perhaps the specific temperatures, cooling rates, or hammer patterns, remains elusive. The story of Damascus steel reminds us that technological progress isn't always linear. Sometimes advanced techniques are developed and then lost, leaving behind artifacts that we struggle to understand or reproduce. The medieval Islamic world achieved metallurgical capabilities that we're only now beginning to appreciate and understand. But Damascus steel wasn't the only lost metallurgical technique. Ancient Japanese smiths created similar composite steels for their katana blades, using different methods but achieving comparable results. Roman smiths developed concrete that was more durable than modern varieties. Chinese metallurgists created alloys that we can analyze but not perfectly, recreate. These examples suggest that ancient craftsmen often possessed intuitive understanding of material science that took modern researchers decades or centuries to rediscover through scientific analysis. They developed techniques through trial and error, passed down through apprenticeship systems that preserved practical knowledge even when the theoretical understanding was limited. The legend of Damascus steel has inspired blacksmiths and metallurgists for centuries. Modern attempts to recreate the legendary blades have led to advances in materials science and a deeper understanding of steel microstructures. In trying to recover ancient knowledge, we've sometimes discovered new techniques and principles. Some contemporary smiths claim to have rediscovered the secrets of Damascus steel, but their products, while impressive, don't quite match the properties described in historical accounts. The original techniques remain tantalizingly out of reach, preserved only in the museum pieces that continue to showcase their remarkable properties after centuries of existence. The search for the lost secrets of Damascus steel continues in laboratories around the world, where metallurgists use electron microscopes and computer modelling to analyse ancient blades atom by atom. Each analysis reveals new details about the steel's structure, but the complete picture of how it was made remains elusive. Damascus steel stands as a monument to human ingenuity and a reminder of how much knowledge can be lost when technological traditions are disrupted. It challenges us to preserve and document our modern techniques so that future generations won't face the same puzzle of trying to recreate impossible technologies from the past. Artifact 8. The Noke culture sculptures, Africa's artistic mystery. While Islamic smiths were perfecting impossibly sharp blades deep in Africa, another civilization was creating art that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the continent's history. In 1943, a British archaeologist named Bernard Fagg was working near the village of Nok in central Nigeria when local miners brought him fragments of what appeared to be ancient terracotta sculptures. What Fagg saw would revolutionize our understanding of African art and challenge assumptions about the development of sophisticated artistic traditions in sub-Saharan Africa. The Nok sculptures were unlike anything previously discovered in Africa. These weren't simple pottery figures or crude tribal art, but sophisticated sculptures displaying remarkable artistic skill and technical mastery. The figures showed complex facial expressions, elaborate hairstyles, detailed jewellery, and clothing that suggested a highly developed artistic tradition. What made the discovery even more extraordinary was the age of the sculptures. Carbon dating revealed that the Nok culture flourished between 1500 BCE and 400 CE, making them among the oldest known sculptures in sub-Saharan Africa. This meant that sophisticated artistic traditions were developing in Africa at the same time as classical Greek and Roman art in the Mediterranean. The technical achievement represented by Nok sculptures was remarkable. The figures were created using advanced ceramic techniques that required precise control of temperature, clay composition, and firing processes. Many sculptures were life-sized or larger, requiring sophisticated understanding of how clay behaves during drying and firing to prevent cracking and breakage. The artistic style was distinctive and sophisticated. Nok artists developed consistent conventions for representing human features: elongated heads, triangular or circular eyes, elaborate hairstyles, and expressive facial features. The level of stylistic consistency suggests a mature artistic tradition with established schools and teaching methods. But the Nok sculptures represented more than just artistic achievement. They provided evidence of a complex society with social hierarchies, religious beliefs, and cultural sophistication that had been largely invisible in the archaeological record. The figures showed people wearing elaborate jewellery, complex hairstyles, and varied clothing that suggested social differentiation and cultural complexity. Many sculptures depicted people in positions of authority or religious significance: seated figures that may represent rulers or judges, standing figures with ceremonial objects, and figures wearing elaborate regalia that suggested political or religious roles. This implied a society with established institutions and complex social structures. The discovery challenged prevailing assumptions about African history and development. In the 1940s and 50s, many scholars assumed that sophisticated art and culture hadn't developed in sub-Saharan Africa until much later periods. influenced by contact with Mediterranean or Middle Eastern civilizations. The Nok sculptures proved this assumption completely wrong. As more Nok sites were discovered and excavated, the picture became even more complex. The culture extended across a vast area of central Nigeria, suggesting either a unified political entity or a shared cultural tradition that spread across tribal and linguistic boundaries. The consistency of artistic style across this large region implied sophisticated communication and cultural exchange networks. Archaeological evidence revealed that the Nok people were accomplished metallurgists as well as artists. They were among the first sub-Saharan African cultures to develop iron-working technology, creating sophisticated tools and weapons that gave them significant advantages over neighbouring peoples still using Stone Age technology. The iron-working skills were closely connected to their ceramic expertise. Both technologies required precise control of high-temperature fires and understanding of how different materials behaved under heat. The Nok people had developed sophisticated furnace designs that could achieve the temperatures necessary for both advanced ceramics and iron smelting. But despite their obvious sophistication, the Nok culture remains largely mysterious. They left no written records, no monumental architecture, and no clear descendants among modern Nigerian peoples. Their artistic tradition seemed to appear fully formed and then disappeared just as mysteriously, leaving behind only scattered sculptures and archaeological sites. The disappearance of Nok culture around 400 CE corresponds with significant climate changes in West Africa that transformed the region from woodland savanna to the more arid conditions that exist today. These environmental changes may have forced population migrations and cultural disruptions that led to the abandonment of Nok artistic traditions. Recent research has suggested connections between Nok culture and later African artistic traditions, particularly the famous bronze and terracotta sculptures of Ife and Benin. Some scholars see stylistic continuities that suggest the Nok tradition may have influenced these later artistic achievements, even if the direct cultural connections were broken. The technical sophistication of Nok ceramics has inspired modern African artists and challenged Western assumptions about African artistic capabilities. The sculptures demonstrate that African artists were capable of remarkable achievements long before European contact, developing sophisticated techniques and aesthetic traditions that rivaled anything being produced elsewhere in the world. Modern analysis of Nok sculptures using advanced imaging techniques has revealed even more details about their construction and artistic techniques. The figures were built using sophisticated ceramic engineering, with internal supports and careful attention to weight distribution that prevented collapse during firing. The artistic achievement of the Nok culture stands as testament to the sophistication of ancient African civilizations and reminds us that artistic excellence and technical innovation emerged independently in many parts of the world. The sculptures challenge us to reconsider our assumptions about African history and to recognize the continent's contributions to human artistic and cultural development. Unfortunately, many Nok sites have been damaged by unauthorized excavation and art trafficking. The distinctive beauty of Nok sculptures has made them highly sought after by collectors, leading to widespread looting that has destroyed archaeological context and made it difficult to understand the culture that created them. The Nok sculptures remain one of Africa's greatest artistic achievements, sophisticated works that demonstrate the technical skill, aesthetic vision, and cultural complexity of an ancient civilization that flourished in the heart of Africa over 2,000 years ago. They stand as proud testimony to the continent's rich artistic heritage and its contributions to human cultural development. Artifact 9. The Lycurgus Cup, Ancient Nanotechnology. From the sophisticated sculptures of ancient Nigeria to the impossible glass technology of Imperial Rome, in the British Museum sits one of the most technologically advanced artifacts from the ancient world, a Roman glass cup that changes colour depending on how light strikes it. When lit from the front, the Lycurgus cup appears jade green. When illuminated from behind, it glows a brilliant ruby red. This isn't magic. It's nanotechnology that we've only recently learned to understand and replicate. The cup dates to the 4th century CE and depicts the mythological King Lycurgus of Thrace being entangled in grapevines as punishment for opposing the god Dionysus. The scene is carved in exquisite detail, showing the king's agony as the vines wrap around his body. But it's not the artistic craftsmanship that makes this cup extraordinary. It's the impossible glass technology. For centuries, scholars assumed the colour-changing effect was some kind of optical illusion or trick of the glass composition. The cup remained a curiosity, admired for its beauty, but not understood scientifically. It wasn't until the 1990s that researchers finally discovered the secret. The glass contains nanoparticles of gold and silver. When examined under electron microscopes, the glass revealed particles of gold and silver just 70 nanometers in diameter, about 1/1000th the thickness of a human hair. These particles are embedded throughout the glass in precise proportions that create the colour-changing effect through a phenomenon called surface plasmon resonance. The nanoparticles interact with light in ways that depend on the viewing angle and illumination direction. When light passes through the glass from behind, the gold and silver particles scatter green wavelengths while allowing red light to pass through, creating the ruby glow. When viewed from the front, the scattered light creates the jade green appearance. This is cutting-edge nanotechnology that we've only learnt to produce deliberately in the last few decades. Yet somehow, Roman glassmakers in the 4th century CE created it using techniques we still don't fully understand. How did they control particle size so precisely? How did they achieve such uniform distribution throughout the glass? How did they even know that such tiny particles could affect light? The technology required to create the Lycurgus cup was extraordinarily sophisticated. The glassmakers had to heat gold and silver to specific temperatures, control the cooling process to create nanoparticles of precise sizes, and embed them uniformly in the glass matrix. Any variation in temperature, timing, or composition would have ruined the effect. Recent attempts to recreate the cup using modern technology have achieved limited success. While we can now deliberately create gold and silver nanoparticles and embed them in glass, we haven't been able to perfectly replicate the Roman achievement. Something in their technique, perhaps the specific heating and cooling cycles, the glass composition, or the method of particle introduction, remains elusive. The cup represents just one example of advanced Roman glass technology. Throughout the empire, Roman glassmakers created products with properties that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. They made glass that was stronger than modern varieties, glass that could withstand extreme temperature changes, and glass with optical properties that we struggle to replicate. But the Lycurgus cup wasn't unique. Similar colour-changing glasses have been found at other Roman sites, suggesting this wasn't a one-off accident, but a deliberate technique known to multiple craftsmen. The technology may have been a trade secret of specific workshops or guilds, passed down through carefully guarded apprenticeship systems. The loss of this technology represents another example of knowledge that was gained and then lost during the collapse of the Roman Empire. The social upheaval of late antiquity disrupted many traditional crafts, and specialised techniques like nanoparticle glass making disappeared when the master craftsman died without passing on their knowledge. Modern research into the Lycurgus cup has led to advances in our understanding of nanoparticle behaviour and optical properties. Scientists studying the cup have developed new techniques for creating colour-changing materials and have found applications in everything from computer displays to solar cells. The cup also raises questions about the extent of ancient scientific knowledge. Did Roman glassmakers understand the principles of nanoparticle optics? Or did they discover the technique through trial and error? Were there schools of natural philosophy where such phenomena were studied and explained? Or was the knowledge purely practical? Some researchers suggest that ancient craftsmen often possessed intuitive understanding of scientific principles that they couldn't explain theoretically. Through generations of experimentation and refinement, they developed techniques that worked without necessarily understanding why they worked. The global distribution of advanced ancient technologies suggests that such knowledge was more widespread than we often assume. Chinese metallurgists were creating complex alloys, Islamic chemists were developing sophisticated dyes and pigments, and Mesoamerican craftsmen were working with obsidian at the molecular level. The Lycurgus cup stands as a reminder that our ancestors were capable of achievements that continue to challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. It demonstrates that technological innovation and scientific discovery have been driving forces throughout human history, even when the theoretical framework for understanding these achievements didn't exist. Today, the cup continues to inspire researchers and engineers working to develop new optical materials and nanotechnology applications. In studying how ancient craftsmen achieved effects we can barely replicate, we sometimes discover new approaches to modern technological challenges. The cup also serves as a humbling reminder that technological progress isn't always linear. Sometimes ancient artisans achieved results that we're still trying to understand and replicate. The past holds secrets that can inform present innovation if we're wise enough to study and learn from ancient achievements. Artifact 10. The Piri Reis Map. Impossible cartography. Ancient Romans embedded nanotechnology in glass, but our next artifact suggests that 16th century cartographers had access to geographical knowledge that shouldn't have existed. In 1929, scholars at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul made a discovery that would puzzle geographers and historians for decades. Hidden in the palace archives was a 16th century map created by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. At first glance, it appeared to be another example of early modern cartography, but closer examination revealed details that shouldn't have been possible. The map, drawn on gazelle skin in 1513, showed the Atlantic Ocean with remarkable accuracy for its time. It depicted the coasts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas with geographic features that wouldn't be officially discovered or accurately mapped for centuries. But most mysteriously, it seemed to show the coastline of Antarctica, a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered until 1820. Piri Reis himself noted on the map that he had compiled it from various sources, including maps captured from Christopher Columbus and charts from ancient geographers. He claimed some of his sources dated back to the time of Alexander the Great, suggesting that ancient cartographers possessed geographic knowledge that had been lost and was only slowly being rediscovered. What made the map truly puzzling was its apparent accuracy in depicting geographic features that were unknown to 16th century European explorers. The map showed the correct outline of South America's coast, including the mouth of the Amazon River, and geographic details that wouldn't be accurately surveyed until much later expeditions. Most controversially, the southern portion of the map appeared to show a landmass in the position of Antarctica, complete with what looked like mountain ranges and coastline features. This seemed impossible, since Antarctica was buried under miles of ice, and its coastline was completely unknown to any civilization that could have influenced Piri Reis's sources. In the 1960s, American cartographer Charles Hapgood conducted a detailed analysis of the Piri Reis map using modern geographic coordinates and satellite imagery. His conclusions were startling. The map showed geographic features with an accuracy that seemed impossible for its time, suggesting its sources had access to advanced surveying techniques or aerial perspective. Hapgood's analysis suggested that the map's projection system was mathematically sophisticated, requiring trigonometric calculations and spherical geometry that weren't supposed to be known to 16th century Ottoman cartographers. The map seemed to use a projection system similar to modern azimuthal equidistant projections, which require complex mathematical knowledge. But Hapgood went further, suggesting that the southern landmass on the map actually depicted the ice-free coastline of Antarctica as it would have appeared before the ice sheets formed. This would require source maps that were thousands of years old, created by an unknown civilization with advanced geographic knowledge. Modern analysis has been more cautious about such extraordinary claims. While the Piri Reis map does show remarkable accuracy in some areas, scholars note that 16th century cartographers often had access to geographic knowledge from various sources, including Portuguese and Spanish explorers who conducted extensive but often secret surveys. The apparent accuracy of South American coastlines can be explained by Portuguese expeditions that may have mapped these areas more extensively than generally known. The Portuguese were conducting secret surveys of the South American coast throughout the early 16th century, and some of this knowledge could have reached Ottoman cartographers through captured charts or other sources. The mysterious southern landmass remains more controversial. Some scholars suggest it represents the cartographer's attempt to balance the map by adding a hypothetical southern continent, following the geographic theories of ancient geographers like Ptolemy, who believed in the existence of undiscovered southern lands. Others argue that the southern features represent known territories depicted in an unusual projection or orientation. The coastline that appears to show Antarctica might actually represent the southern tips of South America or Africa, distorted by the map's projection system. However, some features of the map remain difficult to explain using conventional historical sources. The level of detail in certain areas, the accuracy of longitude measurements, which was extremely difficult to achieve before the development of accurate timepieces, and the sophisticated projection system all suggest access to geographic knowledge that was remarkably advanced for its time. Recent research has revealed that Ottoman cartographers in the 16th century had access to a much wider range of geographic sources than previously thought. They collected maps from Spanish, Portuguese, Venetian, and Arab sources, creating synthesis maps that combined knowledge from multiple traditions. The Islamic world had preserved and continued developing geographic knowledge from ancient sources, including Greek, Persian, and Indian cartographic traditions. Islamic geographers had also conducted their own explorations and surveys, creating maps that were often more accurate than contemporary European charts. Some of the most intriguing aspects of the Piri Reis map may result from this synthesis of different cartographic traditions. Ancient geographic knowledge preserved and developed by Islamic scholars may have been combined with recent European discoveries to create maps that appeared impossibly accurate. The map also reflects the limitations of 16th century cartography. Despite its inaccuracies in some areas, it contains significant errors and distortions that reflect the incomplete geographic knowledge of its time. The balance between accuracy and error suggests it was created from a mixture of good and poor sources. Modern technology has allowed researchers to analyse the map with unprecedented precision, using satellite imagery and computer modelling to compare its features with actual geography. These studies have confirmed some accuracies, while explaining others as coincidental or misinterpreted. The Piri Reis map remains a fascinating example of how geographic knowledge was transmitted and preserved across cultures and centuries. It demonstrates that ancient and medieval civilizations often possessed more sophisticated geographic understanding than we assume, and that knowledge was continuously being exchanged and refined through cultural contact. Whether or not the map contains evidence of unknown ancient civilizations or lost cartographic techniques, it certainly represents a remarkable achievement in early modern cartography. It stands as testament to the skill of Ottoman mapmakers and their ability to synthesize geographic knowledge from diverse sources. The map continues to inspire research into the history of cartography and geographic knowledge, reminding us that the development of human understanding of the world was a complex process involving many cultures and traditions, not all of which have been fully documented or understood. Artifact 11, the Voynich manuscript, the unreadable book. In the rare book library of Yale University sits what may be the world's most mysterious manuscript. The Voynich manuscript, named after the Polish book dealer who acquired it in 1912, is a 240-page medieval codex written in an unknown script, illustrated with bizarre drawings and seemingly resistant to every attempt at decipherment. The manuscript dates to the early 15th century and appears to be some kind of scientific or medical treatise. Its pages are filled with detailed illustrations of unknown plants, astronomical diagrams, mysterious nude figures in green pools, and elaborate pharmaceutical recipes. But the text that accompanies these images is written in a script that has defied every attempt at translation. The writing system appears to use about 20-25 different characters, combined in ways that suggest genuine language rather than random gibberish. Statistical analysis shows patterns consistent with natural language. Certain characters appear more frequently, some combinations are common, while others never occur, and the text shows the kind of structure you'd expect from real writing. But no one has ever successfully deciphered a single word of the Voynich manuscript. Professional cryptographers, linguists, computer scientists, and amateur codebreakers have all tried and failed. During World War II, top American codebreakers who had successfully cracked Japanese and German codes attempted to decode the manuscript and gave up in frustration. The manuscript's illustrations provide tantalizing clues about its possible content, but they raise more questions than they answer. The botanical section shows detailed drawings of plants, but most don't match any known species. Some appear to be fantasy creations, while others might represent real plants drawn in a stylized manner or depicting species that are now extinct. The astronomical section contains circular diagrams with zodiacal symbols and what appear to be star charts, but they don't match medieval European astronomical knowledge. Some diagrams show the sun and moon connected by what look like pipelines or tubes, suggesting unknown cosmological theories. Perhaps most bizarre are the balneological sections, showing nude women bathing in green pools connected by an elaborate system of pipes and tubes. The women appear to be performing some kind of ritual or medical treatment, but the purpose remains completely unclear. The pharmaceutical section shows drawings of plant roots, leaves and vessels that suggest the manuscript might be a medical or alchemical treatise. Some illustrations appear to show distillation equipment or other chemical apparatus, but again, nothing matches known medieval practices. Various theories have been proposed for the manuscript's origin and purpose. Some scholars suggest it's an elaborate hoax created by a medieval or Renaissance con artist to fool collectors into thinking they were acquiring ancient wisdom. The consistent internal logic of the writing system, however, makes this theory less likely. Other theories propose that it's written in a constructed language, an artificial linguistic system created for specific purposes. Medieval and Renaissance scholars sometimes created secret languages for encoding alchemical or mystical knowledge, and the Voynich script might represent such a system. The manuscript might also be written in an unknown natural language, possibly from a culture that had no other written records. Some researchers have suggested connections to various Native American languages, extinct European dialects, or even Asian linguistic traditions. More exotic theories suggest the manuscript is written in an encrypted form of a known language, using substitution ciphers or other cryptographic techniques. However, computer analysis using modern cryptographic methods has failed to identify any recognizable encryption patterns. Recent research has focused on using artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze the manuscript's patterns. Computer algorithms have identified statistical regularities that support the theory that it represents genuine language, but they haven't succeeded in breaking the code. One of the most intriguing aspects of the manuscript is its apparent consistency. The same words appear repeatedly in similar contexts, and the writing shows the kind of internal logic you'd expect from real language. This suggests either a very sophisticated hoax or a genuine linguistic system that we simply don't understand. Carbon dating and ink analysis have confirmed that the manuscript is genuinely medieval, ruling out modern forgery theories. The parchment dates to the early 15th century, and the inks match those used in medieval manuscripts. The binding and construction techniques are also consistent with 15th century bookmaking. The manuscript's provenance adds to its mystery. It appeared in the collection of Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, who was famous for collecting occult and scientific manuscripts. Before that, its history is unknown, leading to speculation about its original creators and purpose. Some researchers have found tantalizing connections to known historical figures. Roger Bacon, the 13th century Franciscan friar and natural philosopher, was once thought to be the author. But this theory has been largely abandoned. Other candidates include various medieval alchemists, physicians, and scholars. The failure to decode the Voynich manuscript after a century of intensive study raises profound questions about the limits of human knowledge and the possibility that some information might be permanently lost. It's possible that the key to understanding the manuscript, whether it's a lost language, an unknown cipher system, or crucial contextual information, simply no longer exists. The manuscript continues to attract researchers and amateur enthusiasts from around the world. Online communities share theories and attempt collaborative decipherment efforts, while professional linguists and cryptographers continue to apply new analytical techniques to the ancient mystery. Whether the Voynich manuscript will ever be decoded remains uncertain. It stands as perhaps the ultimate puzzle from the medieval world, a book that was clearly important to someone, that contains what appears to be sophisticated knowledge, but that guards its secrets as jealously today as it did 6 centuries ago. Artifact 12, the granite vases of ancient Egypt, precision in stone. In the subterranean chambers beneath the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, archaeologists discovered a collection of artifacts that challenges everything we think we know about ancient Egyptian stoneworking capabilities. Thousands of stone vessels, bowls and vases carved from the hardest materials on Earth, granite, diorite and basalt, with a precision that seems impossible for the supposed Bronze Age technology of 4,600 years ago. These aren't crude stone bowls hacked out with primitive tools. These are masterpieces of engineering that display tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. Many have walls so thin they're translucent despite being carved from granite, one of the hardest natural materials known. Others feature impossible geometries, narrow necks opening into wide, bulbous interiors that would challenge modern machine tools. The precision is extraordinary. When measured with modern instruments, many vessels prove to be perfectly symmetrical, with wall thicknesses that vary by less than a millimeter across the entire surface. The internal curves follow mathematical principles that require sophisticated understanding of three-dimensional geometry. Perhaps most puzzling are the vessels with narrow necks and wide interiors. To create these, ancient craftsmen would have had to hollow out the interior through an opening just a few centimeters wide, somehow removing granite from spaces they couldn't see or directly access. The internal surfaces are perfectly smooth and uniform, showing no tool marks or evidence of how they were shaped. The materials themselves present another challenge. Granite has a hardness rating of 6 to 7 on the Mohs scale, making it harder than steel. Working such materials with copper tools, the hardest metal available to Old Kingdom Egyptians, should be virtually impossible. Copper has a hardness of only 2.5 to 3 on the Mohs scale, meaning it would be worn away by the granite rather than shaping it. Yet thousands of these vessels exist, found not just at Saqqara, but at sites throughout Egypt. They represent one of the highest achievements in stoneworking ever accomplished, using techniques that we can barely understand or replicate today. Modern attempts to recreate these vessels using period-appropriate tools have largely failed. Experimental archaeologists have tried using copper tools, sand abrasives and wooden implements, but they can't achieve anything approaching the precision of the ancient examples. Even with modern diamond-tipped tools and machine lathes, creating some of these vessels would be challenging. The tool marks visible on some vessels only deepen the mystery. Instead of the irregular scratches you'd expect from hand tools, many show perfectly parallel lines that suggest the use of machine tools rotating at high speeds. Some vessels show spiral tool marks that would require continuous rotation of either the tool or the workpiece, something that should have been impossible with ancient technology. Recent analysis using 3D scanning and computer modelling has revealed even more puzzling details. Many vessels show internal geometries that follow complex mathematical curves, parabolas, ellipses, and other forms that require sophisticated calculation to achieve. The precision suggests the use of templates or measuring devices that we haven't discovered in the archaeological record. The quantity of these vessels is as mysterious as their quality. Thousands have been found, suggesting mass production using standardized techniques. This implies not just individual master craftsmen, but entire workshops with established methods for creating these impossible objects. The cultural context makes the vessels even more puzzling. They date to the very beginning of Egyptian civilization, when the society was supposedly just emerging from prehistoric conditions. According to traditional chronology, these vessels were created by people who had only recently developed writing, centralized government, and monumental architecture. Yet the level of technical sophistication required to create these vessels suggests a mature technological tradition with generations of development behind it. The precision and standardization imply specialized workshops, advanced training systems, and sophisticated quality control, characteristics of a highly developed industrial culture. Some researchers have suggested that the vessels were made using advanced techniques that were later lost. Perhaps early Egyptian civilization possessed technologies that weren't preserved in written records or archaeological evidence. The sudden appearance of such sophisticated stonework, followed by an apparent decline in precision during later periods, suggests knowledge that was gained and then lost. The chemical analysis of some vessels has revealed another mystery. Trace elements in the stone don't match any known Egyptian quarries, suggesting the raw materials came from unknown sources or were processed using techniques that altered their composition. Modern stoneworkers who have examined the vessels express amazement at their precision and craftsmanship. Master craftsmen with decades of experience working with granite admit they couldn't reproduce many of these ancient achievements, even with modern tools. The vessels raise fundamental questions about the development of ancient Egyptian civilization. If they possess such advanced stoneworking capabilities at the very beginning of their history, what other technologies might they have developed? Why don't we find evidence of the tools and techniques required to create such precision work? Some researchers suggest that the vessels represent evidence of a lost technological tradition that predates known Egyptian civilization. Perhaps they were inherited from an earlier culture that possessed advanced stoneworking knowledge, and later Egyptians simply copied or reused them without understanding how they were made. The vessels also challenge our assumptions about the linear progression of technology. We typically assume that technological capabilities develop gradually over time, but the Egyptian stone vessels suggest that sometimes advanced techniques appear suddenly and may even be lost over time. Recent discoveries have revealed similar precision stonework at other ancient sites around the world. The stone boxes of the Serapeum in Egypt, the precision-cut blocks at Pumapunku in Bolivia, and the fitted stones of Sacsayhuaman in Peru all demonstrate stoneworking capabilities that challenge our understanding of ancient technology. The global distribution of such precision stonework suggests either independent development of advanced techniques or some form of technological exchange that we don't understand. Either possibility challenges conventional narratives about ancient technological development. The Egyptian granite vessels remain in museum collections around the world, silent witnesses to technological capabilities that we're still trying to understand. They serve as reminders that our ancestors were capable of achievements that continue to puzzle and inspire us, and that human ingenuity has always found ways to push beyond the apparent limits of available technology. Artifact 13. The Faces of Belmez. Images from Nowhere. In 1971, in the small Spanish town of Belmez de la Moraleda, Maria Gomez Camara noticed something impossible forming on her kitchen floor. What appeared to be a human face was emerging from the concrete, becoming clearer and more defined each day. When the family tried to destroy it by covering it with cement, new faces appeared in different locations throughout the house. The phenomenon would continue for over 30 years, producing dozens of faces that appeared, changed, and disappeared seemingly at random. The faces showed different expressions, ages, and characteristics, some appearing peaceful, others tormented or anguished. They became one of the most documented paranormal phenomena of the 20th century. The initial face appeared on August 23, 1971, gradually becoming more distinct over several days. Maria's son Miguel destroyed it with a pickaxe and covered the area with new cement. But within weeks, new faces began appearing. This pattern would repeat throughout the decades, faces appearing spontaneously, evolving over time, then fading or being destroyed, only to be replaced by new ones. The story attracted international attention when local authorities investigated the phenomenon. Officials from the Spanish government, university researchers, and paranormal investigators all studied the faces, but no one could explain how they were forming. The images weren't painted, carved, or created by any known artificial means. Chemical analysis of the concrete revealed no foreign substances that could account for the facial images. The patterns seemed to emerge from within the material itself, as if the concrete was somehow generating the imagery spontaneously. Microscopic examination showed that the discoloration extended deep into the concrete matrix, ruling out surface treatments. Researchers attempted to document the face's formation using time-lapse photography and continuous monitoring. They found that the images developed gradually over periods of days or weeks, becoming more defined over time. Some faces would remain stable for months, while others changed expression or disappeared entirely. The emotional expressions of the faces were particularly striking. Some appeared serene and peaceful, while others showed what seemed to be pain, anguish, or fear. The level of detail was extraordinary. Many faces showed realistic proportions, shading, and features that suggested actual human subjects rather than random patterns. Skeptics proposed various explanations for the phenomenon. Some suggested that the faces were created using chemical stains or dyes that would slowly permeate the concrete and create facial patterns. Others proposed that they were the result of moisture patterns, mineral deposits, or other natural processes that coincidentally resembled faces. However, controlled experiments failed to reproduce the phenomenon using proposed natural mechanisms. Attempts to create similar effects using chemical stains, moisture manipulation, or other techniques couldn't achieve the level of detail and realism seen in the Belmez faces. The discovery of human remains beneath the house added another mysterious element to the story. Archaeological excavation revealed that the house was built on a former cemetery, with burials dating back several centuries. This discovery led to speculation that the faces might be connected to the spirits of those buried beneath the building. Paranormal researchers proposed that the faces represented some form of psychic imprinting or spiritual manifestation, possibly connected to traumatic events that occurred at the location. They suggested that the emotional energy of past events was somehow being recorded in the physical structure of the building. The phenomenon intensified during periods of emotional stress in the family, leading some researchers to propose that Maria Gomez herself might be unconsciously creating the faces through some form of psychokinetic ability. This theory suggested that intense emotional states could somehow influence physical matter in ways that conventional science doesn't understand. However, the faces continued to appear even when Maria was away from the house, and they occurred in areas she rarely visited. Multiple witnesses, including scientists and investigators, observed the faces forming and changing over time, ruling out simple fraud or self-deception. The Belmez faces attracted attention from parapsychologists, who saw them as potential evidence for phenomena beyond conventional scientific understanding. They represented a form of physical manifestation that could be studied and documented, unlike many other reported paranormal events that leave no physical evidence. Conventional scientists remained skeptical, pointing out that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the faces could potentially be explained by unknown natural processes or sophisticated fraud. However, no definitive natural explanation has ever been established. The phenomenon gradually diminished after Maria's death in 2004, though occasional new faces were reported by subsequent residents. The house became a pilgrimage site for those interested in paranormal phenomena, attracting visitors from around the world. Recent advances in material science and imaging technology have provided new tools for analysing the faces, but they remain as mysterious as ever. High-resolution photography and chemical analysis have revealed additional details about their structure and composition, but haven't explained how they form. The Belmez challenges our understanding of what's possible in the physical world. Whether they represent unknown natural processes, psychic phenomena, or something else entirely, they demonstrate that reality may be more complex and mysterious than conventional science assumes. The case remains one of the most extensively documented examples of anomalous physical phenomena, with hundreds of photographs, scientific studies, and witness testimonies collected over 3 decades. Whatever their ultimate explanation, the faces of Belmez represent a genuine mystery that continues to challenge our understanding of the boundaries between mind and matter at each. Artifact 14, the King's Chamber sarcophagus, precision in granite. Deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, in the chamber known as the King's Chamber, sits a granite sarcophagus that represents one of the most precisely crafted objects from the ancient world. Carved from a single block of red granite, it displays tolerances and finishing techniques that challenge our understanding of ancient Egyptian stoneworking capabilities. The sarcophagus measures approximately 7 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3.5 feet high, carved from incredibly hard Aswan granite. What makes it extraordinary isn't just its size, but the precision with which it was crafted. The walls are perfectly parallel, the corners are true right angles, and the internal surfaces are polished to mirror-like smoothness. When measured with modern precision instruments, the sarcophagus reveals tolerances that would be impressive even for contemporary machine shops. The walls vary in thickness by less than 5 millimeters across the entire structure, and the internal surfaces are flat to within fractions of a millimetre. This level of precision requires not just skilled craftsmanship, but sophisticated measuring tools and quality control processes. The granite itself presents a formidable challenge. With a hardness rating of 6 to 7 on the Mohs scale, it's harder than steel and extremely difficult to work with primitive tools. Yet the ancient craftsmen somehow managed to hollow out the interior, creating smooth, precisely contoured surfaces without any visible tool marks. The corners of the sarcophagus are particularly puzzling. They're cut at perfect right angles, both inside and outside, requiring extremely precise control of cutting tools. Creating such corners in granite while maintaining the wall thickness would challenge modern stoneworkers using advanced equipment. The internal finish is perhaps the most mysterious aspect. The granite surfaces are polished to a level that approaches optical quality, reflecting light like mirrors. Achieving such a finish on granite requires extremely fine abrasives and polishing compounds, applied with techniques that we don't fully understand. Most puzzling of all is how the sarcophagus was created and installed. The finished piece is too large to fit through the pyramid's passages, meaning it must have been either carved in place or the pyramid was built around it. Either scenario presents enormous logistical and technical challenges. If carved in place, the craftsman would have had to work in extremely confined conditions, using tools and techniques that left no archaeological evidence. They would have had to remove tons of granite chips and dust from the chamber, somehow disposing of the waste material without leaving traces. If the pyramid was built around the sarcophagus, it implies a level of planning and precision in pyramid construction that seems impossible. The chamber would have had to be designed to exact specifications, with the sarcophagus positioned perfectly during construction, a feat requiring surveying and engineering capabilities of the highest order. Recent research has revealed additional mysteries about the sarcophagus. Acoustic analysis shows that when struck, it produces pure musical tones with specific resonant frequencies. The granite appears to have been tuned to produce these tones, suggesting acoustic properties were intentionally designed into the structure. Some researchers believe the acoustic properties suggest the sarcophagus was designed as some kind of resonating chamber rather than simply a burial container. The precise frequencies it produces might have been intended for ceremonial or spiritual purposes, though the original function remains unknown. The controversy deepens when we consider similar precision granite work found throughout ancient Egypt. The granite boxes in the Serapeum, the precision-cut blocks in various temples, and the obelisks demonstrate that such stoneworking capabilities weren't unique to the Great Pyramid, but represented standard Egyptian technology. This suggests that ancient Egyptian civilization possessed industrial-scale, precision stoneworking capabilities that we've largely underestimated. They weren't just building monuments with large blocks fitted together roughly, they were creating precision-engineered structures with tolerances that rival modern manufacturing. Modern attempts to recreate the sarcophagus using period-appropriate tools have largely failed. Even with access to copper tools, sand abrasives, and unlimited labour, experimental archaeologists struggle to achieve anything approaching the precision of the original. Some researchers have proposed that the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced tools that haven't been preserved in the archaeological record. Perhaps they developed diamond-tipped tools, high-speed rotating equipment, or other technologies that would explain their precision stoneworking capabilities. Others suggest that the precision was achieved through techniques we don't understand, possibly involving sonic tools, chemical processes, or other methods that left no archaeological traces. The absence of tool marks on many precision surfaces suggests manufacturing processes quite different from conventional stoneworking. The sarcophagus has also become the focus of alternative theories about ancient Egyptian technology. Some researchers suggest it demonstrates evidence of advanced machining capabilities, possibly using tools and techniques that were more sophisticated than mainstream archaeology assumes. Detailed measurements using laser scanning and computer analysis have revealed additional puzzling features. The sarcophagus shows evidence of extremely precise cutting angles and surface finishes that would require computer-controlled machinery to achieve today. The mystery extends to the granite source and transportation. Aswan granite quarries are over 500 miles from Giza, and transporting such massive blocks would have required sophisticated logistics and engineering. The precision with which the granite was selected and worked suggests quality control processes that seem advanced for Bronze Age civilization. Recent discoveries of similar precision granite work at other ancient sites around the world have added global context to the mystery. The precision boxes at Pumapunku in Bolivia, the fitted stones at Sacsayhuaman in Peru, and various megalithic structures show that such capabilities weren't unique to Egypt. The King's Chamber sarcophagus remains one of the finest examples of precision stone working from the ancient world. Whether it was created using lost techniques, unknown tools, or simply represents the highest achievement of conventional ancient craftsmanship, it continues to challenge our understanding of what was possible in the Bronze Age. The sarcophagus stands as testament to human capability and ingenuity, reminding us that our ancestors were capable of achievements that continue to inspire wonder and challenge our assumptions about ancient technological limitations. Artifact 15, the Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible. In the National Library of Sweden sits the largest medieval manuscript ever created, a massive tome so imposing and mysterious that it earned the nickname the Devil's Bible. The Codex Gigas measures 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and weighs 165 pounds, requiring 2 people to safely handle it. But its size isn't what makes it famous. It's the legend surrounding its creation and the full-page portrait of Satan that dominates one of its pages. According to medieval legend, the entire manuscript was created in a single night by a monk who made a deal with the devil. The monk, facing imminent death for breaking his religious vows, supposedly bargained with Satan to complete this impossible task in exchange for his soul. Whether you believe the legend or not, the Codex Gigas represents one of the most extraordinary achievements in medieval book production. The manuscript was created in the early 13th century, probably at the Benedictine monastery of Podlajica in Bohemia. It contains the complete Latin Bible, along with other texts including Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, medical treatises, chronicles, and various smaller works. The sheer scope of the project was unprecedented for medieval scriptoriums. What makes the Codex Gigas truly remarkable is the consistency of its production. Modern analysis suggests that the entire manuscript was indeed written by a single scribe, using the same ink, the same hand, and maintaining the same style throughout. This represents an estimated 20 years of continuous work, an almost superhuman feat of dedication and endurance. The writing itself is a masterpiece of medieval calligraphy. Every letter is perfectly formed, maintaining consistent size and spacing throughout the massive text. The scribe managed to avoid errors, corrections, or variations in style that would normally accumulate over such a long project. The consistency suggests either extraordinary skill or some form of mechanical assistance that we don't understand. The ink used throughout the manuscript has proven remarkably durable, retaining its deep black colour after 8 centuries. Chemical analysis reveals it was made from iron gall ink, a standard medieval formula, but somehow achieved a quality and consistency that exceeds typical medieval manuscripts. The most famous feature of the Codex Gigas is the full-page illustration of the devil on page 577. The image shows a massive demonic figure with horns, claws and a forked tongue, drawn with remarkable artistic skill and unsettling psychological impact. The devil appears to be trapped or contained within the page, his body contorted in an unnatural pose. The devil illustration is accompanied by a full-page image of the heavenly city on the facing page, creating a stark contrast between good and evil. The artistic quality of both illustrations is extraordinary, demonstrating mastery of medieval artistic techniques and sophisticated understanding of religious symbolism. But the artistic achievement extends throughout the manuscript. The Codex Gigas contains hundreds of illuminated initials, decorative borders, and smaller illustrations, all executed with the same high level of skill. The consistency of artistic style suggests the scribe was also the artist, making the achievement even more remarkable. The manuscript's physical construction is equally impressive. The pages are made from vellum, created from the skins of an estimated 160 animals, probably calves. The preparation of such a quantity of high-quality vellum would have required enormous resources and specialised knowledge of parchment-making techniques. The binding is original to the manuscript and represents one of the finest examples of medieval bookbinding ever preserved. The wooden covers are wrapped in leather and decorated with metal fittings that have survived 8 centuries of use. The binding's construction required advanced knowledge of bookbinding techniques and access to high-quality materials. What makes the Codex Gigas' creation story even more mysterious is the complete absence of records about its production. Despite its enormous scale and the resources it would have required, no medieval sources mention its creation. There are no records of commissioning, no accounts of the materials purchased, no mention of the scribe who created it. This silence is unusual for such a major medieval project. Monasteries typically kept detailed records of significant undertakings, especially those requiring substantial investment of time and resources. The lack of documentation has contributed to the supernatural legends surrounding the manuscript. The text itself contains some puzzling features. Certain passages are written in different inks or hands, suggesting additions or corrections by later scribes. Some scholars have noted that specific biblical books are arranged in unusual orders, and certain texts are included that wouldn't normally appear in standard medieval Bibles. Hidden within the text are various codes and ciphers that medieval monks often used to conceal information. Some researchers have suggested that the Codex Gigas contains encrypted knowledge about alchemy, astrology, or other subjects that would have been considered dangerous by medieval church authorities. The manuscript's history after its creation is almost as mysterious as its origin. It passed through various noble collections and monastic libraries, surviving wars, fires, and other disasters that destroyed countless other medieval manuscripts. Its preservation seems almost miraculous given the numerous catastrophes it has survived. During the 30 Years' War, the manuscript was captured by Swedish forces and taken to Stockholm, where it has remained ever since. The circumstances of its capture and transport represent another logistical mystery. Moving such a massive and valuable object during wartime would have required significant planning and resources. Modern scholars have attempted to verify the legend of single-night creation by analysing the manuscript's production techniques. Computer analysis of the handwriting has confirmed that it was indeed written by one person, but estimates suggest it would have taken 20-25 years of continuous work, not a single night. However, some aspects of the manuscript remain difficult to explain using conventional medieval production methods. The consistency of ink colour, the absence of corrections or variations, and the extraordinary quality of both writing and illustration suggest capabilities that exceed typical medieval standards. Recent research has focused on the psychological and cultural significance of the devil illustration. Some scholars interpret it as representing the monk's internal struggles with faith and doubt, while others see it as a sophisticated theological statement about the nature of good and evil. The Codex Gigas continues to attract researchers from various disciplines, including historians, theologians, art historians, and even psychologists interested in the motivations behind such an extraordinary undertaking. It represents one of the pinnacles of medieval manuscript production and continues to inspire wonder at human dedication and capability. Whether created through divine inspiration, demonic assistance, or simply extraordinary human determination, the Codex Gigas stands as testament to the power of individual achievement and the heights of artistic and intellectual accomplishment possible in the medieval world. Artifact 16, the Tutankhamun meteorite dagger. When Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, among the thousands of treasures he discovered were 2 daggers placed within the mummy's wrappings. One had a gold blade, magnificent but not unusual for royal burial goods. The other had an iron blade that would prove to be one of the most extraordinary artifacts from ancient Egypt. A dagger forged from metal that fell from the stars. For decades, the iron dagger puzzled Egyptologists. Iron was extremely rare in ancient Egypt during Tutankhamun's reign around 1323 BCE, more precious than gold, and typically only available through trade with distant lands. The presence of such a high-quality iron blade in the boy pharaoh's tomb suggested it was an object of extraordinary value and significance. Recent scientific analysis has revealed the dagger's true origin. It was forged from meteoric iron. X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy showed that the blade contains 10.8% nickel and 0.58% cobalt, a composition that matches known meteorites rather than terrestrial iron ore. This discovery makes it one of the oldest known artifacts crafted from extraterrestrial materials. The craftsmanship of the dagger is exceptional. The blade shows no signs of corrosion despite being over 3,100 years old, suggesting sophisticated metallurgical techniques that we're only now beginning to understand. The iron has been worked with such skill that it rivals modern steel production methods. The handle is equally remarkable. Crafted from gold and decorated with a rock crystal pommel, the entire weapon demonstrates the highest levels of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship. But the meteoric iron blade makes it truly unique. It represents not just royal wealth, but access to materials that literally fell from the heavens. Ancient Egyptians would have encountered meteoric iron as fallen stones that occasionally appeared in the desert. These objects would have seemed magical, rocks that fell from the sky and contained metal harder than anything they could produce. The Egyptian word for iron, bia en pet, literally means metal from heaven, reflecting their understanding of its celestial origin. Working meteoric iron presented unique challenges for ancient smiths. The material is harder than typical iron and contains impurities that make it difficult to forge. Yet the Tutankhamun dagger shows no signs of the cracking or structural problems that often result from working meteorite iron with primitive techniques. The knife's perfect preservation suggests the ancient craftsman understood the material's properties and developed specific techniques for working it. They may have used specialized heating and cooling processes, or alloying techniques that enhance the metal's workability while preserving its unique characteristics. Chemical analysis has revealed that the dagger was likely made from a specific meteorite that fell in Egypt or was traded from neighbouring regions. The nickel content matches several known meteorite finds from the area, suggesting ancient Egyptians may have actively collected and worked meteoric iron when they could find it. The placement of the dagger within Tutankhamun's mummy wrappings indicates its profound religious significance. Ancient Egyptians believed that celestial objects connected the earthly realm with the divine, and a weapon forged from heavenly metal would have been considered magically powerful. The dagger may have been intended to protect the pharaoh's spirit in the afterlife, serving as a divine weapon against supernatural threats. Its celestial origin would have made it particularly suitable for fighting demons or evil spirits that might threaten the deceased king's journey to the afterlife. Other meteoric iron artifacts have been found in ancient Egypt, but few match the quality and craftsmanship of Tutankhamun's dagger. A set of meteoric iron beads found in a pre-dynastic cemetery predates the dagger by over 1,000 years, suggesting Egyptians had been working celestial metals for millennia. The global distribution of ancient meteoric iron artifacts reveals that many cultures recognize the special properties of these celestial materials. The Inuit of Greenland used meteoric iron for tools and weapons, as did various Native American tribes. Ancient Chinese texts describe swords forged from star metal with supernatural properties. However, few ancient artifacts match the sophistication of the Tutankhamun dagger. The level of metallurgical skill required to create such a perfect blade from meteoric iron suggests advanced knowledge of metalworking that challenges our understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities. Modern analysis using electron microscopy has revealed the dagger's microstructure in detail. The iron shows signs of careful temperature control during forging, with grain structures that indicate sophisticated heat treatment. The craftsman somehow managed to overcome the difficulties of working meteoric iron to create a blade of exceptional quality. The dagger's edge geometry is particularly impressive. Despite being over 3 millennia old, it retains a sharp edge that suggests careful design and expert craftsmanship. The blade's taper and cross-section follow principles of weapon design that wouldn't be out of place in modern knife making. Recent discoveries have revealed that meteoric iron artifacts were more common in the ancient world than previously thought. As analytical techniques improve, researchers are identifying more examples of celestial metals in museum collections, suggesting ancient peoples were more sophisticated in their use of these materials than we realised. The Tutankhamun dagger represents the pinnacle of ancient meteoric iron working. It combines artistic excellence with metallurgical sophistication, creating an object that serves as both functional weapon and sacred artifact. The fact that it was deemed worthy of burial with Egypt's most famous pharaoh speaks to its extraordinary value and significance. The dagger also raises questions about ancient Egyptian astronomy and their understanding of the celestial phenomena. The Egyptians were skilled astronomers who tracked celestial movements with great precision. They may have been able to predict or locate meteorite falls, allowing them to collect these valuable materials more systematically than random chance would suggest. Today, the dagger remains one of the treasures of the Egyptian Museum, continuing to inspire wonder at ancient human achievement. It represents humanity's oldest connection to outer space, a tangible piece of the cosmos worked by ancient hands into an object of beauty and power. The meteoric iron dagger of Tutankhamun stands as testament to ancient ingenuity and the universal human fascination with the stars. It reminds us that our ancestors looked to the heavens not just for guidance and meaning, but for the very materials they used to create their most precious objects. Artifact 17. The Crystal Skulls, Carved Mysteries. In museums and private collections around the world lie some of the most controversial artifacts ever discovered. Crystal skulls carved from pure quartz with extraordinary precision and artistry. These life-sized human skulls, crafted from single pieces of crystal, have sparked decades of debate about their origin, age, and the methods used to create them. The most famous of these is the Mitchell-Hedges skull, discovered in 1927 at the Maya site of Luban Tun in Belize by British adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges and his daughter Anna. The skull is carved from clear quartz crystal and demonstrates remarkable anatomical accuracy, complete with a detachable jaw piece that fits perfectly with the main structure. What makes the crystal skulls extraordinary is their precision. The Mitchell-Hedges skull shows no tool marks despite being carved from one of the hardest natural materials known to man. Quartz has a hardness rating of 7 on the Mohs scale, making it nearly as hard as diamond. Working such material with primitive tools should leave extensive scratches and abrasion marks, yet many skulls show surfaces polished to optical quality. The level of anatomical detail is stunning. The skulls reproduce human cranial features with medical accuracy, including proper proportions, realistic bone structure, and even details like suture lines where skull plates join. The creators clearly had sophisticated knowledge of human anatomy and access to techniques that could achieve extraordinary precision in one of the hardest materials on Earth. Several crystal skulls have been subjected to intensive scientific analysis. Electron microscopy reveals surface patterns that suggest different manufacturing techniques than those typically associated with ancient cultures. Some skulls show microscopic scratches consistent with modern rotary tools, while others display polishing patterns that could only be achieved with modern compounds and techniques. The controversy deepens when we examine the skull's supposed archaeological contexts. While some were allegedly found at ancient sites, most lack proper archaeological documentation. The Mitchell-Hedges skull's discovery circumstances have been questioned, with some researchers suggesting it may have been purchased at auction rather than excavated from Maya ruins. Chemical analysis of crystal composition has provided additional clues about the skull's origins. The quartz in some skulls doesn't match sources known to have been used by ancient American cultures, suggesting either unknown ancient trade networks or modern manufacture using contemporary materials. However, not all crystal skulls are modern creations. Some smaller examples show genuine signs of ancient manufacture, with tool marks and surface treatments consistent with pre-Columbian techniques. These authentic pieces demonstrate that ancient American cultures did work crystal, though typically on much smaller scales than the life-size skulls. The precision required to carve a life-size skull from a single piece of quartz is staggering. The material is not only extremely hard, but also fragile and prone to fracturing along crystal planes. Modern stone carvers using diamond tools and computer-controlled machinery find it challenging to work quartz at this scale without causing fractures. Ancient techniques for working quartz would have required extraordinary patience and skill. Traditional methods using sand abrasives and wooden tools would take years or decades to complete a single skull, assuming the work could be completed without fracturing the crystal. The time investment alone would make such objects incredibly valuable. Some researchers have proposed that ancient cultures possessed advanced tools that haven't been preserved in the archaeological record. Perhaps they developed diamond-tipped implements, high-speed rotating devices, or other technologies that would explain their ability to work quartz with such precision. Others suggest that the skulls were created using techniques we don't understand, possibly involving acoustic tools, chemical processes, or other methods that left no archaeological traces. The absence of tool marks on some skulls suggests manufacturing processes quite different from conventional stoneworking. The cultural significance of crystal skulls in Mesoamerican societies adds another layer to the mystery. Quartz was considered sacred by many ancient American cultures, associated with spiritual power and divine communication. Crystal skulls would have been objects of immense religious importance, possibly used in ceremonies or as repository for spiritual knowledge. Maya and Aztec texts describe crystal objects with supernatural properties, including skulls that could speak or provide wisdom to those who consulted them. While these accounts are likely metaphorical, they suggest that crystal skulls held profound spiritual significance in ancient American religions. The modern crystal skull phenomenon has been complicated by the proliferation of recent creations sold as ancient artifacts. Contemporary carvers have produced hundreds of crystal skulls using modern techniques, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish potentially authentic, ancient examples from modern reproductions. Scientific analysis has become more sophisticated in recent years, using techniques like oxygen isotope analysis to determine the geological origin of quartz, and microphotography to examine tool marks at previously impossible levels of detail. These methods are gradually separating authentic, ancient crystal work from modern reproductions. Some institutions have revised their assessments of crystal skulls in their collections based on new analytical evidence. The British Museum, the Smithsonian, and other major institutions have reclassified several skulls as likely modern creations after detailed scientific study revealed manufacturing techniques inconsistent with ancient methods. However, the question of whether any life-size crystal skulls are genuinely ancient remains open. While many have been proven to be modern creations, the possibility that some represent authentic, ancient artifacts cannot be completely ruled out until more examples are subjected to comprehensive scientific analysis. The crystal skull mystery highlights the challenges of authenticating unusual artifacts, especially when they seem to demonstrate capabilities that exceed our expectations of ancient technology. They remind us to approach extraordinary claims with skepticism while remaining open to the possibility that ancient peoples were capable of achievements we haven't fully understood. Whether ancient or modern, the crystal skulls represent remarkable achievements in stone carving and artistic vision. They continue to fascinate researchers and the public alike, serving as focal points for questions about ancient capabilities, modern authentication techniques, and the enduring human fascination with mystery and the unknown. Artifact 18, the Saqqara bird, ancient aerodynamics. In 1898, archaeologists excavating a tomb at Saqqara, Egypt, discovered a small wooden object that would become one of archaeology's most debated artifacts. Catalogued simply as wooden bird model, the object sat in the Egyptian museum for decades before anyone noticed its unusual characteristics. In 1969, Dr. Khalil Masiha, an Egyptologist and model airplane enthusiast, realised that the Saqqara bird bore a striking resemblance to a modern aircraft. The object dates to approximately 200 BCE and is carved from sycamore wood. At first glance, it appears to be a conventional bird figure, similar to many animal models found in Egyptian tombs. But closer examination reveals features that seem inconsistent with any known bird species, and remarkably, similar to aircraft design principles. The most striking feature is the wing configuration. Unlike typical bird models, which show the natural curve and feather detail of bird wings, the Saqqara bird has straight, aerodynamically shaped wings with a distinct dihedral angle. The the upward slope that provides stability in aircraft design. The wings show no decoration or detail that would suggest feathers. The tail is equally unusual. Instead of the elaborate fan-shaped tail, typical of bird models, the Saqqara bird has a single vertical fin that resembles an aircraft rudder. This configuration would be bizarre for representing a bird, but makes perfect sense as an aircraft stabilizer. The body proportions are also aircraft-like. The fuselage is streamlined and elongated, with a shape that suggests aerodynamic considerations rather than accurate bird anatomy. The head is simplified and rounded, lacking the detailed beak and eye features typical of Egyptian bird representations. When Dr. Messiha examined the object, he noticed that it possessed many characteristics of a well-designed glider. The weight distribution, wing placement, and overall proportions suggested an object designed to fly, not simply to represent a bird. He proposed that the Saqqara bird might be evidence of ancient Egyptian understanding of aerodynamic principles. Modern analysis has revealed additional aircraft-like features. The centre of gravity is positioned correctly for stable flight, the wing loading is appropriate for a glider, and the overall design follows principles that weren't officially discovered until the development of modern aviation in the 20th century. Computer modelling and wind tunnel tests have confirmed that the Saqqara bird could indeed fly if properly launched. The design produces lift and maintains stability in flight, demonstrating aerodynamic properties that seem impossible for a culture that supposedly had no knowledge of aviation principles. Some researchers have built full-scale replicas of the Saqqara bird and achieved successful gliding flight. These experiments suggest that the original design, while small, embodies sound aerodynamic principles that could be scaled up to create functional aircraft. However, the interpretation of the Saqqara bird as an ancient aircraft model remains controversial. Mainstream archaeologists point out that the object was found among other bird figures and ritual objects, suggesting it was indeed intended as a bird representation rather than an aircraft model. The simplified design could be explained by artistic convention rather than aerodynamic considerations. Egyptian artists often stylized animal forms, reducing complex features to essential elements. The straight wings and simple tail might reflect artistic choices rather than engineering principles. Critics also note that if ancient Egyptians had developed aviation technology, we would expect to find additional evidence: larger aircraft, written descriptions of flight, or artistic depictions of aerial activity. The Saqqara bird stands alone, with no supporting evidence for ancient Egyptian aviation. Supporters counter that the object's aerodynamic properties are too sophisticated to be accidental. They argue that even if full-scale aircraft weren't developed, the Saqqara bird demonstrates understanding of flight principles that could have led to aviation technology under different circumstances. Some researchers have proposed that the object represents a surviving example of ancient experimentation with flight. Perhaps Egyptian engineers or inventors were investigating aerodynamic principles, creating small models to test their theories about how objects could be made to fly. The cultural context of the Saqqara bird adds another dimension to the mystery. It was found in a tomb, suggesting religious or spiritual significance. Ancient Egyptians associated flight with divine power and spiritual transformation, and objects with flight capabilities might have held profound religious meaning. The bird's unusual design might represent an attempt to create a physical object that embodied spiritual flight or divine transportation. In Egyptian mythology, the soul was often depicted as a bird, and the deceased pharaoh was said to fly through the heavens like a falcon. A model aircraft might have been intended to assist the soul's celestial journey. Recent discoveries have revealed that the Saqqara bird isn't unique. Several similar objects have been found at other Egyptian sites, all showing comparable aerodynamic characteristics. This suggests either a tradition of creating such objects or evidence that multiple individuals were experimenting with flight principles. The global distribution of similar artifacts adds to the mystery. Objects with aircraft-like characteristics have been found in various ancient cultures, from pre-Columbian America to ancient India. The Vimanas described in Sanskrit texts, the flying machines of Hindu mythology, and various ancient artifacts that resemble aircraft suggest a worldwide interest in flight that predates modern aviation. Some researchers have proposed that ancient peoples possessed knowledge of flight that was later lost. possibly due to religious prohibition, political upheaval, or simply the difficulty of developing aviation technology without modern materials and manufacturing techniques. The aerodynamic sophistication of the Saqqara bird remains the strongest argument for its interpretation as evidence of ancient flight knowledge. The object demonstrates understanding of principles like centre of gravity, wing loading, and stability that weren't officially discovered until the Wright brothers and other aviation pioneers began systematic study of flight in the early 20th century. However, alternative explanations continue to be proposed. Some researchers suggest the object might represent a weather vane or wind indicator, designed to show wind direction rather than to fly. Others propose it could be a toy or ritual object, designed to glide short distances rather than achieve sustained flight. The mystery of the Saqqara bird highlights the challenges of interpreting ancient artifacts when they seem to demonstrate knowledge that exceeds our expectations of ancient capabilities. It forces us to consider whether our understanding of ancient technological development might be incomplete or oversimplified. Modern experimental archaeology has provided new tools for testing theories about ancient flight. Researchers can now build accurate replicas, test them in wind tunnels, and use computer modelling to analyse their aerodynamic properties. These techniques have confirmed that the Saqqara bird embodies sound flight principles, regardless of its original intended purpose. The object continues to inspire research into ancient knowledge and technological capabilities. Whether it represents evidence of ancient aviation experimentation, sophisticated understanding of aerodynamics, or simply coincidental resemblance to aircraft design, it challenges us to remain open to the possibility that ancient peoples were capable of achievements we haven't fully recognised. The Saqqara bird reminds us that human curiosity about flight is ancient and universal. Throughout history, people have looked at birds and dreamed of joining them in the skies. Whether the ancient Egyptians who created this object understood the principles of flight, or simply captured the essence of that eternal dream, they created something that continues to inspire wonder and debate over 2,000 years later. Artifact 19. The London Hammer, anachronistic artifact. In 1936, Max and Emma Hahn were walking near London, Texas, when they discovered a curious object embedded in a rock formation. What appeared to be a wooden handle protruding from solid limestone would become one of the most controversial artifacts in archaeology, the London Hammer, an apparently modern tool found in rock supposedly 100 million years old. When the Hahn family cracked open the limestone concretion, they revealed a metal hammerhead attached to a wooden handle. The hammer appeared to be of 19th century American design, with a standard claw hammer configuration that would be familiar to any modern carpenter. But the rock surrounding it presented a massive chronological problem. The limestone formation was identified as belonging to the Cretaceous period, dating to approximately 100 to 140 million years ago. If genuine, this would mean that a modern-style hammer had somehow become embedded in rock, formed long before humans existed, challenging everything we understand about geological time and the history of life on Earth. The hammer itself shows clear signs of modern manufacturing. The metal head displays characteristics consistent with 19th or early 20th century ironworking, with tool marks and construction techniques that match known historical examples. The wooden handle appears to be hardwood, possibly hickory, which was commonly used for tool handles in American manufacturing. However, the limestone encasing presented features that seemed to support its ancient age. The rock showed no signs of recent formation or artificial manufacture. Geological analysis suggested it was genuine sedimentary limestone, formed through normal geological processes over millions of years. The mystery deepened when researchers attempted to date the artifact using various methods. Radiocarbon dating of the wooden handle was inconclusive, possibly due to contamination or the handle's exposure to groundwater over time. Attempts to date the metal proved equally problematic. Chemical analysis of the hammerhead revealed an unusual composition that has added to the controversy. The metal contains 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur, with traces of other elements. This composition is unusual for modern steel, but doesn't necessarily indicate ancient manufacture. Some researchers have pointed to the high iron content and low carbon levels as evidence that the hammer was made using advanced metallurgical techniques. Modern steel typically contains significant amounts of carbon and other alloys, while the London hammer's composition resembles very pure iron that would be difficult to produce using conventional methods. Supporters of the hammer's anomalous age argue that the limestone formation could not have formed around a modern object without leaving clear evidence of recent geological activity. They point to the seamless integration of the hammer into the rock matrix as evidence that both formed simultaneously in the distant past. However, geological explanations for the hammer's encasement have been proposed that don't require ancient origins. Limestone can form relatively quickly under certain conditions, and groundwater rich in dissolved minerals can create concretions around objects in decades rather than millions of years. The process of concretion formation could explain how a 19th century hammer became embedded in what appears to be ancient limestone. Minerals dissolved in groundwater can precipitate around objects, creating rock-like formations that might appear much older than they actually are. Critics also note that the limestone formation where the hammer was found contains other evidence of recent geological activity. The presence of modern fossils and minerals suggests ongoing geological processes that could account for the hammer's encasement without requiring millions of years. The controversy has been complicated by claims about the hammer's properties that border on the supernatural. Some researchers have reported that the hammerhead doesn't rust despite being exposed to air and moisture, suggesting unusual metallurgical properties or preservation methods. Others have claimed that the hammer's metal composition indicates manufacturing techniques unknown to modern science, possibly involving advanced alloys or processing methods that we haven't discovered. These claims have made the artifact popular with proponents of alternative archaeology theories. However, controlled scientific analysis has failed to confirm most of these extraordinary claims. The hammer shows normal corrosion patterns consistent with iron exposed to atmospheric conditions, and its metallurgical properties, while unusual, don't exceed what could be achieved using historical techniques. The handle has also been the subject of extraordinary claims. Some researchers have reported that the wood has partially fossilized or transformed into coal, suggesting great age. However, standard wood preservation in mineral-rich groundwater could explain these characteristics without requiring millions of years. The London hammer has become a symbol for those who question conventional scientific dating methods, or propose that human civilization is much older than generally accepted. It's often cited as evidence for alternative theories about human history, ancient advanced civilizations, or problems with standard geological and archaeological chronologies. However, the scientific consensus remains that the hammer is a 19th or early 20th century tool that became embedded in a limestone concretion through normal geological processes operating over decades rather than millennia. The unusual metallurgy and preservation can be explained without invoking extraordinary ages or manufacturing techniques. The case highlights the importance of controlled scientific analysis in evaluating unusual archaeological claims. While the London hammer is certainly interesting, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the available data supports conventional rather than revolutionary explanations. Modern analysis techniques continue to provide new insights into the hammer's composition and formation history. Advanced dating methods, metallurgical analysis, and geological studies may eventually resolve the controversy definitively, but for now the London hammer remains a subject of debate. The artifact serves as a reminder that unusual objects require careful scientific investigation rather than assumption-based interpretation. While it's natural to be excited by potentially paradigm-shifting discoveries, the rigorous application of scientific methods is essential for distinguishing genuine mysteries from misunderstood, normal phenomena. Whether ultimately proven to be a genuine anachronism or an unusual example of rapid geological processes, the London hammer has contributed to our understanding of how artifacts can become preserved in geological formations and how careful analysis is required to interpret such finds accurately. Artifact 20, the Dropper Stones, Discs of the Unknown. In 1938, Chinese archaeologist Qipu Tei was leading an expedition through the remote Bayan Kara Ula Mountains on the border between China and Tibet, when his team made a discovery that would become one of archaeology's most controversial claims. In a series of caves, they allegedly found hundreds of stone discs covered with hieroglyphic inscriptions that told an extraordinary story of visitors from the stars. The caves themselves were mysterious enough. They contained rows of graves with unusually small skeletons, measuring only about 4 feet in height. The skulls were disproportionately large compared to the body size, with thin, delicate bone structure, unlike any known human population. The burials dated to approximately 12,000 years ago, making them among the oldest human remains ever found in the region. But it was the 716 stone discs that became the focus of the most extraordinary claims. Each disc measured about 9 inches in diameter, with a hole in the centre, resembling a modern phonograph record. Carved into the surface of each disc was a continuous spiral groove filled with tiny hieroglyphic characters, too small to read without magnification. For decades, the discs remained unstudied and largely forgotten in Chinese museums. Then in 1962, Professor Tsum Nui allegedly deciphered the hieroglyphs and published a translation that shocked the archaeological world. According to his interpretation, the discs told the story of the Dropa people, whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. The translation claimed that the Dropa were visitors from a distant star system who crash-landed on Earth and were stranded here. The local tribes initially feared them because of their strange appearance, but eventually allowed them to settle in the caves. The discs were supposedly their attempt to record their history and contact their home planet for rescue. Dr. Nui's translation described how the Dropa tried to repair their damaged spacecraft but lacked the necessary materials and technology. They gradually integrated with local human populations, though their physical differences made them outcasts. The stone discs were allegedly their attempt to preserve their true origin and call for help from their home world. Scientific analysis of the discs reportedly revealed unusual properties. When examined under electron microscopy, the hieroglyphs showed precision cutting that seemed impossible for 12,000-year-old technology. The stone itself was said to contain unusual minerals and metals that gave it unique electrical properties. Some researchers claim that the discs generated weak electrical currents when exposed to certain conditions, leading to speculation that they might be some kind of ancient recording device or communication equipment. The spiral groove pattern was compared to modern data storage systems, suggesting advanced technological purposes. However, the entire story of the Dropa stones has come under intense scrutiny from mainstream archaeology and skeptical researchers. Many aspects of the discovery and subsequent research appear to be fabricated or grossly misrepresented, making the discs one of archaeology's most persistent hoaxes. Investigation into Dr. Tsum Nui's credentials revealed that no such person existed in Chinese academic records. The university where he allegedly worked had no record of him, and his supposed publications couldn't be verified. The entire decipherment appears to have been fabricated by unknown individuals. Similarly, Chi Putei's original expedition records don't match the claims made about the Dropa discovery. While Chi Putei was a real archaeologist who did work in the region, there's no evidence that he discovered the caves or stone discs described in the Dropa story. Attempts to locate the original discs have been unsuccessful. Museums that allegedly house them have no records of such artifacts, and photographs supposedly showing the discs have been traced to other sources or proven to be misidentified objects. The few physical discs that have been presented as Dropa stones have proven to be modern creations or misidentified artifacts from known archaeological contexts. Scientific analysis of these objects shows no unusual properties or ancient origins. The story appears to have originated in the 1960s UFO literature and was gradually embellished over time with additional details and spurious scientific claims. The narrative follows common patterns found in UFO mythology, including ancient astronaut visitation, crashed spacecraft, and stranded extraterrestrials. Despite the lack of credible evidence, the Dropa stone story continues to circulate in alternative archaeology and UFO communities. The tale has been retold in numerous books, documentaries, and websites, often with additional fabricated details that make the story seem more credible. The persistence of the Dropa myth highlights several important issues in evaluating extraordinary archaeological claims. The story appeared during a period when Chinese archaeological discoveries were difficult for Western researchers to verify independently, allowing fabricated claims to persist unchallenged. The tale also exploits public fascination with ancient mysteries and extraterrestrial visitation, combining archaeological discovery with science fiction elements in ways that appeal to those seeking evidence for alternative theories about human history. Modern investigation techniques have made it easier to verify or debunk such claims. Digital databases of archaeological discoveries, international scholarly communication, and advanced analytical methods make it increasingly difficult for fabricated stories to persist without detection. The dropper stones serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of skeptical evaluation of extraordinary claims, especially when they support pre-existing beliefs or desires for revolutionary discoveries. They remind us that not all archaeological mysteries are genuine and that careful verification is essential. However, the story also reflects legitimate questions about ancient human diversity and technological capabilities. While the specific claims about the Dropper are fabricated, the region where they were allegedly found has yielded genuine archaeological discoveries that reveal the complexity of ancient human migration and cultural development. Real archaeological work in the Bayan, Kara Ula region has uncovered evidence of ancient human populations with diverse physical characteristics and sophisticated cultural achievements. These genuine discoveries are far more fascinating than the fabricated Dropper story, demonstrating that reality often exceeds fiction in archaeological significance. The Dropper stones ultimately remind us that the genuine mysteries of human history are compelling enough without the need for fabricated extraterrestrial explanations. The real story of how humans populated the Earth, developed diverse cultures, and achieved remarkable technological innovations is far more extraordinary than any fictional account of ancient astronauts. We've explored 20 of archaeology's most baffling artifacts, from the mechanical genius of the Antikythera mechanism to stonework so precise it defies modern tools, from undeciphered scripts to metals that outlast time. Together, they reveal a truth that history often hides. Human ingenuity is ancient, global, and endlessly surprising. Some mysteries have yielded to science, others remain stubbornly unsolved. And a few, like the Dropper stones, remind us to temper wonder with skepticism. Yet the genuine enigmas, Göbekli Tepe's cosmic alignments, the Phaistos disk's guarded code, prove that the past still holds secrets beyond our reach. These relics are windows into lost worlds, proof that progress isn't always linear, and that knowledge can be forgotten as easily as it's gained. They also unite us, showing that across oceans and millennia, our ancestors pushed the boundaries of what was possible with the tools they had. More than curiosities, these artifacts are messages from the past, testaments to creativity, determination, and the drive to understand our world. They challenge us to stay curious, to question what we know, and to imagine what might still be discovered. The conversation between past and present is far from over. New finds will emerge, new technologies will unlock old secrets, and our picture of human history will continue to evolve. In every discovery, we see not just who we were, but who we still might become. The mysteries remain, and the story of human achievement, our story, is still being written.